Good evening, and thank you for attending tonight's Thursday, July 12th, special City Council Successor Agency meeting for the City of West Covina. Tonight's meeting is being broadcast live on our YouTube channel, which can be viewed at westcovina.org/live. The meeting will begin shortly. Thank you.
Good evening, and welcome to the 2018-2019 fourth preliminary budget workshop. Tonight, first of all, we would like to start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to have that led by Mayor Pro Tem Tony Wu. Please, everybody rise.
Everybody, please follow my lead. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam City Clerk, may we have roll call, please?
Councilman Spence?
Here.
Councilmember Toma?
Here.
Councilmember Warshaw?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wu?
Here.
Mayor Johnson?
Here.
Mayor, you do have a quorum tonight. I will now turn it over to the City Attorney.
Unfortunately, we have public comment on our closed session agenda, but it isn't on the Joint Public Finance Authority agenda, so we should have public comment before we take the report. Mr. Mayor.
We're going to adjourn for a few minutes into the closed session. Is that it? Oh.
I'm sorry. We need to have public comment before you have your departmental report.
Okay, at this time I'm going to open up a public comment. The reason why we're doing this, we had one of the residents ask us before, they'd like to see the slides, so if they have any comments on them, they can take the notes off of those. So we're going to open up the public comment first, then we'll do our presentation, and then, well, wait a minute, let's start this over again. Let's back the train up a minute. I would like to do the presentation first and have the public comment afterwards, because the reason why we discussed this before, because they can see what's up there. If they have any questions about it, that they've already had public comment, and I don't have to call them back up again. So if I may, I would like to do the presentation and then have the public comment afterwards.
That would be fine. You only have, it's a special meeting. They can only comment on items on the agenda in any event.
Yes, we all understand that. And please, everybody, remember, when you do come up with a public comment, please, the only thing you can comment is what's on the agenda tonight. Thank you. Mr. City Manager, who will start our presentation?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the first item on your agenda is the follow-up discussion on the business license tax. So at this time, I'll turn over to Judy Lancaster to introduce our representatives from HDL to make that presentation.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I have invited Josh Davis from HDL. HDL has been administering our business licenses since 2015, so I will turn over the presentation to him.
I still don't understand.
Okay. Well, Josh is just going to explain about the rate comparisons because I believe that the council wanted to look at that as far as the current rates versus the proposed rates and the tax structure, the proposed tax structure for option 2, model 2.
Okay, I apologize for the confusion there. I think I'm on the same page. Basically, as we discussed before, we looked at multiple options for modifying the tax code in either a simple single gross receipts that applied to everyone, or as what seemed to be the city's direction to us was looking at some classification-based rates. And just as a quick refresher, that's the option that we have currently here under option 2, model 2, provides for varying rates for 5 different categories. Your general retail, residential rental, professional, service, and your existing rate is carried over for commercial property rental. The way we structured the tax at this point was under a multiplier of either $1 per thousand, $2 per thousand, or $3 per thousand, depending on the different category. This is really just an example of what we have seen done in other cities, creating a variable rate on the different categories that typically can support higher rates and take consideration for other taxes and revenues that are generated by these other businesses. So for an example, retail has $1 per thousand, which is the lowest rate, and then your professionals and different types of activity have a higher rate. This scale, of course, is just an example. It can be modified, or different categories can be selected, different rate types can be done. One category could be reduced, or they could all be reduced. It's really just an example of what we see as the most common practice for classification-based rates. Each one of those is sort of highlighted here in the options, and then we also included a sort of neighboring jurisdiction comparison chart to show exactly, currently right now, what just a typical or an average business in certain categories pays now under the existing code, what they pay in similar and surrounding jurisdictions in that same, using those same variables, and what they would pay under option 2. In general, that total revenue impact on that classification as it's written generates an additional $1.7 million in revenue for the city. That can be seen on page 32. The primary revenue out of each category, for an example, currently the city's generating $215,000 off of retail businesses. That would go to $1 million under that plan, and similarly for each of the categories it's broken out. So I can answer any specific questions related to that, or any further detail you'd like me to go into on any one of those specific models.
City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, before we do that, if I can, just for the benefit of the community that's here, this item was discussed a couple months ago by the City Council as a discussion to modernize or overhaul our business license tax structure. The intent is that we have a variety of different structures here that are based on employees and not on gross receipts, as has been mentioned by HDL, which many other cities have moved to. Just as an example, I'm looking here. Most recently, I'm back about a month ago. City of Rolling Hills Estates, granted it's a much smaller community, just had a business license tax adjustment measure that was approved by 80% of the voters in their community to do an overhaul. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. We're trying to streamline, and we also believe now with new technologies and the change in business structures that this is probably a more equitable tax for businesses than other taxes, and I think HDL can respond to that a little bit better. But with that, I'll allow the questions. But I just want to give a little bit of background for the residents of why we're here tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a couple questions, okay, and now you mentioned we have maybe potential couple city utilize this option too, okay, because when I see this, okay, you have only one, okay, small, okay, craft business is $89, okay, and if you're using the option 2, they will come down to $37. But the point is this is only one potential reduce, but the rest, okay, everybody has a major jump, okay, and especially if you go to the hotel, okay, they're from $1,520. Okay, the highest Monrovia is $2,560, and our charge. So this is what I missed last time. Now we go up to the $4,000. So I don't know what's your comparison. You go to their gross income. So now my question will be, they have all different kind of business. Okay, you have a attorney office, accountant office, okay, and you have a dental office, okay, and the dental office, maybe the dentist, okay, own the building. So what, are we going to charge them the building landlord's, okay, license, and we have to charge them the practice license again, so they kind of double whammy. So that how we charge fairly, okay, and fairness, okay, rather than we just try to get into the people's pocket and tell me, and how can we attract more business coming in? Okay, we need to try to get this, okay, fairness to all the business so we can attract more business rather than you kill the golden goose, okay, one time and then people start leaving West Covina, right? And hey, we want more business coming in. We're not trying to make, okay, $4,000, okay, jump from, okay, $540 jump to $1,000, okay, and $250, okay, $470 jumped into $4,500, okay. This jump is like 10 times. So I don't know, okay, those retail can accept that. And then, okay, another thing, if you base on growth, so just a couple questions, so would you please write down so you can answer all together. Okay, how about the real estate company? Okay, how about the insurance company? Okay, their growth may be tremendous, but they have agent, they have to pay their agent commission. So you base on their net income or you base on their gross income coming in. The gross income possible that's $3, $5, $6, $7 million, but after they give to agent 80%, 90% split, then end up the company doesn't have that much of money. And then if you base on growth, then we have a major problem, and nobody can put a real estate business or any kind of this kind of business, okay, into West Covina, because it just will be tremendous, okay, and the fee. So that's all the question I have. Maybe you can answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Trying to work my way from the front back. I can't necessarily, I mean, I totally understand the comments in terms of creating a business-friendly environment, ensuring that the tax rates aren't high, and you certainly don't want to drive businesses, out of the city. Obviously, that's not sort of outside the scope of what we were tasked to do. We were tasked to look at the tax code, identify where there was potential for changes to both simplify the code as well as to potentially expand the rates to be more in line with, a typical standard gross receipts model. So under that logic, the gross receipts model provides the most balance in terms of equity for the businesses as well as the most revenue opportunity for the city. If there's a concern that some of those rates may be too high, or you would like to create a situation where there is certain business types that the city of West Covina would like to attract, then certainly you have the option of creating a tax structure that would recognize those certain categories or lower the rates than what we have, sort of identified as a model. It's certainly not our recommendation that this is something that has to be put in these exact amounts. That's certainly open for interpretation from the city to identify this as a baseline and move certain categories up or down. You could create additional categories if you wanted to isolate different types of business types. So there's a lot of flexibility in this model that allows you to kind of go up or down and address those specific issues. With regard to the equity in terms of how gross receipts are taxed, in terms of, for an example, you've given a real estate firm that perhaps may have a substantial amount of expenses or subcontractors that are paid out. that is, certainly something to consider and something that is true. There are some categories of businesses, so when you tax on gross, that have much smaller profit margins than others. One you can think of is a grocery store, for an example. They typically operate on very, very, very small margins. And a gross receipts tax effective on a professional service firm or some of those other things are typically operating on much higher profit margins, which is typically why we have this classification-based structure that kind of shifts some of the burden away from others. But unfortunately, because of state law, you're prohibited from taxing on net receipts or net income. And so gross receipts is the only model that you can implement that would give you the flexibility of having sort of a self-adjusting for inflation tax code that doesn't require it to be reviewed constantly.
And based on what you said, then you are going to have a major issue because then a lot of people will appeal. Okay, then they say, hey, we don't really have this gross income because we have to pay out so many. Then you're going to have I don't know, we have you or us have a manpower try to go one by one to individually to see what is the fairness for their business license. Okay, this is one thing. I don't know, you can do it or we can do it. And second thing, you haven't answered, my question regarding a lot of business owners, they own the business. Okay, at the same time, they own the the property, and now look like they're going to be double tax, and that's another issue. Potentially, you're going to, push the business out of the city based on this model. So that's why, I want to really listen to you again. Because last time I think I will listen enough, but it's like maybe you have something new. This model will be really benefit for not only we can be fairness, charge the business, community, at the same time we have some income. Because my understanding, this still have to go to the ballot to be approved by the resident. But the point is this: if this study is tailored, it's going to see it will be more harm than good, then we will have a problem. Then tonight, I want to hear from you: is any good will come from your suggestion? And then I need you answer about the double whammy thing.
Okay, I'll start with that. So the answer to that, in its simplest form, without obviously knowing any specific example that could be referred to, but in general, so the tax for commercial rental only applies to those that are not basically owner occupied. So if you own your building and you're in the facility, the commercial tax does not apply to you. It only accounts for you renting to others, not yourself. The caveat being that if you have some form of tax structure set up that you are renting to yourself and you have two separate businesses that are operating, then yes, you would technically do that. But as a true owner,
so you meaning if I sublease, or I have an office over here, I'm using 51% SBA loan, 55% owner occupied. So if I have a 51% I'm using for my practice, another 49% I lease out. So I would be paying the two taxes. Based on what you say.
Yeah, you would be paying the tax that you're receiving from whatever the business activity is that you're doing and the gross receipts for that. And then your separate business, which is the rental of property, the income that you get from that would be taxed under a separate license and that separate classification.
The first question I mentioned about appeal. If you're doing this, a lot of people just have a gross, and you say you only can tax, based on the gross, can I go to net? And then a lot of gross not really their income. And how you based on a tremendous gross, and they have to pay tremendous license fee, and I don't think they can survive in West Covina, as a so-called business friendly.
I mean, I certainly probably can't make any comment on how it would necessarily impact any specific business or whether they could or couldn't afford it here in that way. But I can tell you that, I mean, obviously gross receipts taxation is probably the most common method of doing it. It's very well accepted. It creates the simplest form of filing. It has the most ability to provide equity across different types of businesses, while obviously you can identify some businesses that perhaps would have a rate that might be potentially higher. In general, it does create balance across the board throughout all of those businesses. And again, most businesses across the state are used to paying their business tax in this way. It's how a substantial number of cities who raise revenues from business taxes calculate and do their tax. I haven't seen any specific issues that would cause me to be concerned about that type of flight because of these changes. But again, you would know better than I would.
The question I have is, do we have, or you, who is doing the okay, for the appeal. Okay, so for example, a couple of companies they say our growth really is not our income, so I want to file for appeal so we don't pay that much of taxes. So individual company going to come to the city or I don't know, maybe you. So who is the person in charge of all this new calculation of their taxes, or their business license fee? Well, if we have about 3,000-4,000 of business in West Covina, if we have 1,000 come to say they want to appeal because they don't receive that much of a growth and we tax them that much, do we have 1,000 of this kind of appeal? Do we have manpower to do that?
Yes and no. The simple answer, though, is that there typically is not an appeal because business taxes are self-assessed. So we're not assessing. It's not like property tax where we've assigned that your business is.
But you just say you can do it. If people, they don't think it's fair, so they can go appeal because it's like a real estate company or attorney company or some other company. The award, the money coming in is not paying them. It's paying their defendant or this plaintiff. So they give to them. So in that way, how they have income like this, maybe $5 million, but after they pay out, they only net $200,000. So in that way, how we justify how much to charge them? That's what a lot of business like this. And if they appeal to you, can you handle it?
Yes, we handle appeals and amended returns and that type of activity all the time.
Possible you say no. So much easier.
Well, no, I mean it really isn't a matter of opinion, it's just a matter of substantiated fact. So if they can show that their gross receipts are less than what they originally reported, so if somebody files their tax return this year and says my gross receipts are $1 million, and they find out that they've made some form of mistake and they can show that it was truly only $100,000, they provide that documentation, we make the correction and issue the refund typically in a day or two. It's not a complicated process. It doesn't happen that often because typically they know exactly what their gross receipts are. The filing is always at the end of a period, so they've already done their federal taxes. They've already reported what that gross income is. With regard to the second issue, in terms of determining what that is, the gross receipts are defined very clearly in the code, what is and what isn't included, so there's really no appeal about what they think should or shouldn't be included. It's basically very clearly defined, and so whatever that total number is what gets taxed, by the multiplier.
Okay. So my last question would be, currently our license fee based on how many employees they have. Am I right?
Yeah, there's some variables, but yes, primarily the majority of the businesses pay a flat fee plus a per employee kicker.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Smith, sorry.
Yes. On this item, it's brought back. This item was brought back after there weren't the 4 votes to place it on the ballot. And I guess, when I read through this, this is all about, and I guess I don't understand the public policy other than it raises revenue for the city. I'm not sure what public policy goal is being achieved by instituting this particular tax, should it be passed. And I guess, other than the word, which is variable equity, I'm not sure what we're trying to do, except get more money. So I'd like to hear if there's something we're trying to do that's just not focused on getting money. I'd like to hear what that public policy is.
Well, I'll try the best I can to respond on behalf of the council, unless they have individual comments, but it comes down to this is a system that is not being utilized in other communities. It shows that we are, in essence, while we are a tax-friendly community, we are not generating the type of revenues, as Mr. Spence said, but in the same respect, where it needs to show that, at times, our system needs to be overhauled or modernized. And in order to reap the benefits our neighboring communities are getting, I think West Covina, by not doing this, is losing out millions of dollars a year. And at the end of the day, we were having the discussion earlier. You talk about the businesses here in town, most of them are, big businesses that have businesses in other communities that are paying these already, whether it be the Targets, the Walmarts, the auto dealers. They're paying these in these other communities. We were talking about how Nordstrom's at Costa Mesa pays maybe $20,000, $30,000 for their business license at Costa Mesa, South Hills Plaza, but over in Santa Ana, their tax bill is a couple $1 million a year. And so this is not a situation where we're trying to penalize businesses. We are trying to make sure that we are getting equity in what is being collected here from our residents and our businesses.
Just on that point.
Okay. No, say something. Okay.
Yeah, just on that point, I think if it's between employees versus revenue, I think that the revenue makes sense, because with employees, it's if you're going to add on a fee or more fees per employee, then you're, to the extent you're worried about it, you're potentially making a business worry about hiring an employee. So if you care about jobs, you don't want that to be a factor. But if they're adding revenue, then some portion of that revenue, then you're not going to deter them from adding revenue, because you're always going to be interested in adding revenue. So I think that is one equity issue as to whether or not you want to be putting a license based on jobs and employees, or whether you want to be doing the license amount based on how much money that they're making. I see that as one equity issue.
Well, you know, I understand that there are times when you have to look at things and see whether or not they can be modernized, or whether or not, you know, there's different ways of doing it. But, you know, in every single fee, and including this tax that's coming before us, that's not the impetus for that. That has never been the first thing, the first line in any of the staff things. It's about this will give us more revenue. And, you know, I doubt we'd be modernizing it and overhauling it if it brought in less revenue. You know, that would be the real test if that was something we were trying to do, because to me it seems like our goal is bringing more revenue, and we try to find the public policy way to try to do it, as if we have some kind of entitlement to other people's money. And that's where I really struggle with trying to do many of these things, and I don't vote for them, is because of that. Because our motivations aren't to modernize, our motivations are to get more money. And they should be giving us more money. That their money's ours, and it isn't. I did want to bring up another thing that I think is important.
I can add one more thing to that if you'd like.
Sure.
And
I can too.
Anyway, I certainly agree with what you're saying, and it's certainly a difficult point to argue. I would like to just add, though, that there was you know, the additional revenue was definitely one of the things that we looked at in terms of writing the report. But there are a number of items that we were also told to consider, such as modernizing the code, coming up with different language that will help streamline processes, as well as looking at the equity, not just in terms of the business community, but in terms of the impact to the city. So one of the things that we looked at, which I think is predominant on page 5, was that as all of your expenses have gone up in the last 5 or 10 years, when you have a gross receipts based model, which is similar to sales tax, you'll see that your revenues will somewhat keep in pace with that. But because your business tax has been limited in scope to the number of employees, you've seen a very drastic sort of flatness to your revenue increase from business license that would go up. So that was one of the things that we looked at when we were considering this, in addition to some of those other things, was trying to create just equity in terms of the revenue stream itself, not just in terms of sort of how it's applied to everybody. So I thought I'd add that in as well, that the amount of money that you're getting has really not kept up with what would be considered inflation.
I do think that goes to the point of us whether or not we're entitled to have, more people's money based on whatever system. What kind of business license tax does our fortune teller pay? Which model would they be under? Does anyone know?
I think he has that because you asked that last time.
I know.
Yeah, it's.
Maybe we should call them. They might know. They might know ahead of time. Right now.
I know. I don't know the exact, that it has a specific classification. So I believe it's under the same per employee rate, but there is also, I believe, an additional permit that is, on top of that as well for the activity. So it does raise it substantially higher than what would be a normal business that wasn't doing one of those sort of regulated activities.
Yeah, because it's important to have a government-approved fortune teller. Because we wouldn't want someone to go to one that wasn't, because that would be shady. But so I think that it's because it's under the special chance, like the gambling thing, and device stuff. That's why that it's under. The other question I had on this, and it's a concern of mine, is that this council voted, I didn't, to go ahead and enforce a business tax, license tax, on LLCs. that had not been, and historically, or the last, whatever, we can't figure out when the last time it was actually enforced, a business, and at times the city had waived it, a business license tax that really caught landlords more than anything else. And so you had a business, but they also had an LLC that was the owner of the building, for example. And for maybe a couple decades, we don't know, we had not been enforcing our business license tax on that. And the council voted to do that. There was no education plan, there was no amnesty plan, and there's been now a partial amnesty, but still, there's a lot of blowback from those people who've been doing business in West Covina over that period of time. Because as you know, you mentioned the city, you know, about the revenues, you know, businesses do that too. You know, they know what their revenues are, and suddenly there's a radical change to it. Well, this license tax would affect those businesses as well, would it not? And so
we're not making any changes to the commercial landlords recommended in this category.
Right, but many of those businesses are accountants, lawyers, you know, those kinds of professional services. So many of them are, and so, you know, to do both things on the heels of it, you know, I think would be a mistake. Actually, the people that probably be hurt would be landlords, as, you know, maybe an attorney that has, you know, a couple attorneys go, we don't need to have an office, you know, that kind of stuff. And I just don't think that in the context of this makes any sense, especially after the way the council approached the other aspect of enforcing the commercial business license tax.
Councilman Marshall.
Thank you. So, do I think some of this would need to be tweaked? Sure, it would have to be. But I don't think we have updated our business license tax since, what is it, 2010, I think was the last time? 2010. So it does need updating. Also, businesses change. You have a lot more people who aren't necessarily hiring employees because they're doing things through the internet, which comes through gross receipts. So I do think that gross receipts are a better way to do this. So no matter what, we need to update our business license. Now, does the city want more money? It's not up to us. It's up to the people of West Covina. That's why this would be brought to a vote for the people of West Covina to decide, do they think this is fair? I'm not making the decision. We're just saying, let's put it on the ballot and see if they think that's fair to pay for services throughout the city. A business is not getting charged twice if someone owns a building and charges rent and they operate a second business for whatever that is, whether it's a law firm or a craft store. It's separate gross incomes. It's two separate businesses. So I don't have a problem with that. Each of them are getting services from the city. And we need a way to pay for services. I think there would have to be some tweaking, and I'd want to look at what some other cities have done in tweaking, because there are some businesses that have a very low profit margin based on gross receipts. As we said, one of them is a liquor store. Now, a law firm doesn't have a low profit margin. Most professional businesses don't have low profit margins. So I think that's one of the reasons why they recommended that, you know, in the way they have today. So I have no problem going to gross receipts and letting people decide, the voters of West Covina decide if this is what they want in order to pay for some of the services.
Let me say something, then you can. Yes, I have just a couple questions here. First of all, you know, I look at this and it puzzles me a little bit. I look at the hotel and the rental property, $2 million gross at 80 units. Right now we have 1,520 they pay, going to 4,000. Now, we talked about maybe this could be tweaked a little bit before we do this, and then the other one went to 4,500. My concern is, if we voted yes to pass this tonight, and how can one of the council members be assured that they could be tweaked down the way they could accept it? Or how do we move forward?
I can answer that a little bit, I think. Once the public has voted on a measure, that sets the maximum tax rate for that particular thing. The council could, in theory, reduce that. You would probably have the measure provide that, like is currently the case, that the council can suspend or reduce on a temporary basis any particular category of sales tax. So that would be, or could be, one of the things that you could include in a measure.
Okay, like I said, now we have this chart, okay, so we can compare, different city and, current hour charge in the future if we go to this model, okay, and the only one I see from Azusa with a hotel, okay, that one, Azusa, I want to know if this is really true, okay, they charge $12,932, okay, and then, okay, why, okay, the hotel, their license fee is so expensive. Okay, the rest is so cheaper than us. Only the hotel. Then in that way, we have to build more hotel.
That's a typo. The one does not belong there. It's 2,350.
So it's
I'm looking at the data. Yeah,
what
that's a
a disappointment. So it's a typo.
Yes.
How many other typo you have?
Well, I don't.
So how much it will be?
I don't see any other.
So how much will be the Azusa on their hotel license fee? So it's not $12,932.
$2,930. It's just looks like the one somehow got.
Should I have a one? Should be $2,932. So in that way, our proposed $4,000, we will be still the highest. So we will be the highest in our surrounding neighborhood. Okay, you see this, they are 2,932, we are go up to the 4,000. Currently, we charge $1,020, $97. Plus, we still have a 10% TOT, that 100% go to the city. There's nothing to do with the business license fee. This is the TOT tax.
Right, and the TOT is not on the hotel, that's on the transient, so the hotel does not pay those taxes. The TOT revenue does not come from the hotel.
Yeah, I know. They charge the consumer, the patron, okay, the people, okay, a traveler, okay, and they charge them 10%, and then they give to us. Okay, but they're still paying sales tax too, right?
The consumers would pay sales tax on anything they had, perhaps in a retail shop or a restaurant that's in the hotel, but there is no sales tax on the actual room rate.
The concern I have, okay, the concern I have about this, okay, possible you do the gross, okay, and the income to tax people or the business, possible in a lot of people's point of view, maybe okay. But the point is this, how can you fairness, okay, to see each of different business, because business is so different. Okay, they have a small business, a big business. They have so-called office business, retail. Okay, a warehouse. Okay, there are a lot of business. Okay, in West Covina. Then everything is based on their growth. I just mentioned. Okay, in the real estate, we have so many real estate companies in the West Covina. Okay, and their growth is tremendous. But I'm talking if successful real estate company. But their net is like only 20% or 10% of land because the agent got everything. So in that way, how you be fair to charge them with their business license fee, okay? And not this is only one example. How about the rest? I just don't know how you can use one model of a growth apply to entire all different kind of business or in the same category, and it can be not push them out of our city.
Right. So typically, when we recommend a single gross, like what you see in the Model 1 for Option 2, it's a much lower rate, so it sticks at the $1 per thousand or something that can be, a little bit more equitable across the board, understanding the different types of businesses that would fall under a single rate. Under the model here that we have advertised, the idea is to create classifications that will cover the majority of those exceptions by creating these different rates in those different classifications based on what you fall in. So understanding that some certain types of businesses have much lower margins, you would put those people into a classification under the lower rate, and those that have higher margins you can put into a much higher rate if that was, again, the goal that you wanted to obtain, which is to, get that revenue.
Do you have a model number 3?
We do not at this point, but certainly there can be another one made.
Can you search model number 3? Because model number 2, for me to see from this chart, I don't think will work on me. Okay, this model, I think we are going to create a major problem.
Well, I think if we're looking for a model number 3, we're looking for feedback from the council as to what some of those changes they would like to see that could be incorporated, if that's the case. So if there's certain criteria that you're saying are problematic to you, if you want to highlight those, perhaps we can give you some recommendations on how to tweak them to make that more palpable then.
I have a question. You know, Mr. City Manager, and some of the discussion here, I think, points out the problems with the discussion of this here tonight, is that the idea is that we're supposed to give enough input so that we would buy off on putting this on the ballot, you know, by the deadline. What's the deadline to force it to put it on the ballot? It's a few weeks, right? August 10th. August 10th, a few weeks. If this is truly a public policy effort to modernize and update and figure it out, we will not be able to do it in the next few weeks. Something that should have been much more ongoing. It would need to be put off so we can actually see what the proper rate is. What we're doing here tonight is try to horse trade and figure out how we can get this on the ballot and then convince voters to go ahead and approve it. It's not a public policy debate, it's a revenue debate. And the fact it has to be on the ballot at all speaks to the fact that these businesses are going to be paying more than it takes to do their to govern them. That's one of the reasons we're doing it. The other thing is, you know, this argument about that the people get to decide, and you know, I hear that all the time. Mike, you should vote for the taxes that the people get to decide. Da, 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 da. You know, the council. There's members of the council that don't take that argument when it comes to other issues like districts, fireworks, term limits. You know, we can go through a whole list of things that, you know, have been advocated to go before the public, and we don't let them do that, or the majority doesn't. And so, you know, that argument in itself is disingenuous as well. But if this is truly a public policy issue, we shouldn't be trying to jam it in the next few weeks. And the fact that we would have to put in language to try to excuse the mistakes that we make, because that's what we're saying when we say, oh, we're going to cap it, we're going to do this, we can do that. That's just so if something comes up, oh, we didn't realize it. It's because it's being rushed. This is being forced. It isn't public policy. It's about revenue. And so I think we should put it off. And if there truly is a public purpose to do it, we should actually do it right and focus on it.
So just conceptually, we were talking about the equity earlier on about doing it based on revenue and not based on employees. I mean, the other issue is this idea of like in between or amongst the different sectors. Like, for example, the retail sector, right? The retail sector pays a huge proportion of our local revenue because it's sales tax revenue. And so that was one of the factors in terms of like, well, is that fair that the retail sector, which is already basically funding a lot of the local government, whereas like the service sector, which is an increasingly large percentage of the American economy, our economy as well, they're not, you know, they don't pay that share. So I think part of the equity issue in terms of modernizing the ordinance, in addition to the other bigger factors about going to the internet, fewer employees, et cetera, does it make sense to do it on an antiquated notion of employees, which in the old days when it was more manufacturing and that kind of thing, employees meant more in terms of the size of the business, how much money they made. They were a much better correlation to how big and profitable the company was. These days you can have a hugely profitable company that doesn't have a huge number of employees. So times have changed, and so there is a reason to modernize the structure. Now you can get into the factors about how much, you know, how to, you know, is this particular sector make sense in that sector, but you got to begin with the question of, does it make sense to modernize it from a system that's based on the number of employees to something else that makes more sense. So I get the conceptual move to modernize the structure because I think that does make some more sense in terms of restaurants and retailers, et cetera, paying less than the service sector. So for example, professional firms, accountants, lawyers, they are increasingly a huge portion of the economy in the sector. They make a lot of money, but they aren't taxed the same way that a mom and pop grocery store, somebody who sells goods, somebody who sells trinkets, groceries, the way that they're taxed. So there is a difference there, and I see this as an attempt to try and balance that out with respect to talking about equity in between the types of businesses that we have here in our city. The one question that I have, one of the questions I have is about, first of all, on the hotels. The cities here, it would have been nice to actually see cities that I know have big hotels. Like Monterey Park just passed a ordinance, my understanding is recently, to essentially go to a gross receipts system, right? They actually have hotels in Monterey Park. I don't know, does Covina have a big hotel? Does Glendora have a big hotel? I mean, they were talking about $2 million gross 80 units. I don't know that they have, do they have those? Which one? In Glendora?
Embassy Suites is the Covina's old one. I don't remember what the name of it is. It used to be Park or something. That's their big hotel. That's the big hotel.
Right. So it would be, I mean, I don't know if, do you have any, I mean, Monterey Park passed theirs by like 75% or something like that recently. What, it would have been, I realize they're not one of the cities that we typically compare ourselves to, but at least with respect to the hotel segment, since that is a kind of a unique segment, we're along the freeway, we're in a better position to have hotels than maybe some other of these cities are. But anyway, that's one point. If you have information, that's great. I'd love to hear it. And the other thing, I was curious about contracting firm. If you could give an example of what those types of businesses are that are in that category.
Sure. I certainly can take a look at some more direct correlations for specific hotel categories. I think one of the things that, especially here, what really took a majority of this analysis too, that we would look at in comparative to some other cities, was apartment buildings. So the apartment buildings and hotels would fall under the same category, which lots of cities are going to have units and things like that that correlate. Now the trouble is that a lot of these cities, yours included, doesn't track gross receipts for these types of entities, so we're really using some very broad estimates. It's very difficult to say how much they're making in total without making some pretty big assumptions. So we're in that category. There probably are a lot of comparatives that we could look at when you look at some apartment buildings or something, even though we might not find a hotel, but I can certainly make note of doing that. With regard to a contracting firm, the concept here is just the difference between the city has the majority of your new applications and new businesses that are registering on sort of a daily basis are your contractors that are coming in typically from out of town. They come in, and that includes anybody, a plumber. And so what we were looking at here was drawing a distinction between what maybe someone who was coming in to do some plumbing job or something on a small basis for a homeowner versus just looking at a firm that was maybe a larger general contractor that was doing some major development or some major remodel on something. And so that's just the distinction to show what kind of a firm, a bigger firm versus a sole proprietor or a small contractor would be.
So the cutoff for the small contractor is $50,000 gross. The contracting firm says $500,000 gross. You're saying they're more or less in the same type of work, but one's bigger than the other?
Correct. Yeah, I mean, it's a similar distinction between, a doctor's office that's, a small professional operation versus maybe a larger firm. And the reason for that distinction in terms of the way we did these breakouts was because of the way that your code, because of the way the employee base is and because of the way that the base plus the employee or professional tax goes, the larger the firm gets, typically here in your structure existing, the smaller the tax burden becomes. Because it ends up being regressive to a certain extent.
Do you have any more comments?
As a comment,
Right now, since this is item number 1, I would like to have open public comment for this item. For those, if you filled out a card for this item, you're more than welcome to she'll call your name. If you didn't fill out a card for this item, please, you're more than welcome to still come up and talk. But this is for item number 1, business license tax analysis.
Thank you, Mayor. Some individuals did not indicate whether they're here for item number 1 or number 2. So as I call your name, if you would like to speak regarding item 1, you're welcome to come up. If you would prefer to wait until item number 2, you're welcome to do so as well. And I will start with Mr. Bill Robinson. Did you want to speak regarding item number 1?
I want to speak with respect to both of them.
By all means, come on up. Thank you. Mr. Bill Robinson, you'll have 5 minutes on the clock.
I only need a minute.
That's perfect.
Based on the discussion tonight, I oppose this renovation of the tax, and I can adopt Councilman Wu's reasoning. And based on the discussion tonight, I don't want this on the ballot. It's not business friendly practice, and I don't think you ought to do it. I don't think it should go before the voters. So is that my 1 minute?
30 seconds, even shorter. All right, next up, Sammy Arvizu. Sammy, item number 2. Gilbert Luna, same. Item 2. Jerry Patras has item 1 and 2. I'll reset the clock for you, Jerry.
West Covina resident, Jerry. When I was in junior high, one of the questions my American government teacher asked is, what do we do what happens when government raises taxes on business? And I got called to answer that question, and I said they raise prices. And I don't think that's changed. And my concern with this is not business friendly. I can see the need to tweak the current system, but the city is not going to be business friendly. You're going to drive business out, and you're going to raise prices, which is going to get us going back onto the internet more. And I'm struggling to stay off the internet right now and buy in West Covina. Saying that put it up to the voters is a nice rationale, but it's obfuscating what I think the council should be doing. Stick to the same fee, maybe raise it. I'm really concerned. What's the money going to? Pensions, salaries, hiring? We're just raising money. I am concerned we're just raising money, but for what purpose? I know we need it, but we need to be much more strategic in what we need, what we're doing. Thank you.
The next speaker is Phil Kaufman.
Good evening. In looking at this chart of the current rates for business licenses, I was really amazed, and this is based on my personal experience. I last practiced law back in 2001. I had practiced law for almost 30 years, always in the city of Los Angeles. And the city of Los Angeles business license for attorneys was based on gross receipts back then. And according to this chart, if you're a professional firm and your gross receipts are $1.5 million, you're now paying $470. Back in the 80s and 90s, with receipts nowhere near $1.5 million, I was paying $3,000 a year. I think the city of West Covina, if they've been collecting business license fees at these rates for all these years, I think businesses, lawyers, doctors, retail outlets have gotten an incredible bargain to the detriment to the residents of West Covina. I always remember that I had a good friend who had the same type of practice that I did. Same type of cases, same type of receipts, same type of income, but he was in Beverly Hills. And the city of Beverly Hills had a flat rate for attorneys. While I was paying $3,000 a year, he was paying $300 a year. There are other benefits of having an office in Beverly Hills as opposed to Los Angeles, but at no time did I ever think, well, maybe I should move to Beverly Hills and pay higher rents and other costs of things just to save on the business license tax. Though it was extreme, it was a part of doing business as I saw it in the city of Los Angeles. And even with the proposed rates here, and for the final column, on $1.5 million in gross receipts to a professional firm, that would only be $4,500, which by Los Angeles city standards, 30 years ago, this is still cheap. I also had rental property in the city of Los Angeles, and that was also based on gross receipts, gross rent, but I think it's a mistake really to put hotels and residential real estate in the same category. I had a very small number of units, and the managing things, the costs, including things such as a business license tax based on your rental income, was very different for a small landlord with just a handful of units as opposed to a hotel or even a large residential complex with maybe hundreds of units and maybe several complexes throughout the city. So I think there needs to be a division there between hotels and residential units on one hand, and also as to the number of units. I didn't get a chance to read the entire report, but I think there should be a differentiation made between the number of units, you know, maybe under 20 as opposed to over 20, or maybe under 100 as opposed to over 100, something of that nature. But the bottom line, you know, looking at these figures, is that West Covina businesses have gotten a free ride for many, many years. And I was you know, I've always been a self-employed business person for those years I mentioned, and the last several years in a different type of business. But you know, we need to pay our fair share, as well as residents pay property taxes and sales taxes and everything else. But the city needs the revenue, and it seems like this is a source of revenue that's been understated, underpaid, and been a mistake for many years, and it's time to rectify it.
The next speaker is Mr. John Shoemaker. Items 1 and 2, or just one? Both. Resetting the clock, 5 minutes.
Considering the discussions going on right now for something as important as taking money out of people's pockets, you definitely should be delaying this thing and talk about it a little bit more and getting it out. You know, we've got, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, and then again, we can always change this, we can change something. Well, as the city attorney said, maybe it does set the maximum. What if you find out the maximum on a business set at 500 should be 5,000? Where are you going to make it up? Because you can lower it, you can't raise it. So why don't you guys, you know, get together, figure it out, bring back a proposal. You know, we can keep paying a consultant, you know, and move forward. You know, and what I'd like to know, though, is what benefit do we get if you're a business owner to pay? For years, I had my own little consulting company, and I pay a business tax. And I've never got anything from the city that helps my business. And I'm paying a tax for what? You know, if the idea is, well, we want to be equitable, well, does that mean the car dealerships that sell millions of dollars worth of cars, which means a lot of sales taxes generated, are they going to get a refund because their taxes are going up in another area, since you want to be equitable? And let me point something out to you. It's very simple. If I sell a product or a service to somebody, another business, or anywhere, but I sell it, I don't pay any tax. My customer does. My customer does. It's built into my pricing model. So just based on the arguments that have been going on here, that none of you seem to, you know, nobody seems to know exactly what it is, and then again, maybe not. Just delay it and do something right for once. Okay? Thank you.
And our final speaker regarding item 1, I believe, Chris Miller. Item 1 and 2, or just one? Just one. 5 minutes reset. You may begin.
So, you know, it seems like every time we meet, it's death by 1,000 cuts, incrementalism of adding tax after tax after tax, or fee after fee. You know, from alarm fees to hiring of firemen to do inspections, and to me, it's an extortion of the business owners, because now all of a sudden they're going to be writing $267,000. You know, saying $200,000 is their benefit and salary, so they'll have to come up with an additional $67,000 for the profit to the city. You know, nothing has really been done at looking at holistically a master plan of how to control expenditures and revenue. Take, for instance, this business model of contractors. You're going to charge a small contractor of $50,000 and below, regardless if if he's located in the city or elsewhere, $100. Yet a contractor that does $500,000, you're going to charge him $1,000. So two same contractors show up to a job walk for, let's say, roughly a, you know, $20,000 bathroom at Shadow Oak. The $500,000 contractor is a really good contractor, but now he has to fork up more money for this business license on this little piece of a pie, regardless of the jobs that they're doing in the city, but the whole surrounding area. So all of a sudden, you're limiting the contractor base for the residents, for the city, and for the businesses. Because obviously, the guys that are well established and do good work are going to be basically penalized. Let's have a real model based on, per project or, a little bit more granularity. And like John Shoemaker said, everything is rushed. Nothing is master planned, nothing is looked at in the city. From replacing equipment to ways of, conducting business. Let's do a master plan and change things for a change. Thank you.
Mayor, that concludes your speakers on item number 1.
Okay, I'll close public comment. City Manager.
I just want to follow up with one of the speakers was mentioning about, residents subsidizing businesses. I think that to a certain degree that's a correct statement. I know the council may disagree, but businesses don't pay taxes in this city other than the business license tax. Sales tax, they're not paying. That's a pass-through to whoever's using their businesses. Our residents pay property taxes to have the pleasure to live in this community, but yet the businesses don't pay property tax to operate in the city. That's what this does. No, actually only if they own the property, only the property-owned businesses. Target doesn't, Walmart doesn't. Triple net, okay. Well, so what I'm trying to say is that they're utilizing all the services here in this community, whether it be public safety, even our parks, recreation, our streets, and I think that the city is subsidizing and does need to modernize this license tax, and this is your opportunity to do so.
So if we just shut down all the businesses, then we'd have a plus because we wouldn't be providing those services? Is that right? If we got rid of those subsidies by getting rid of the businesses, we wouldn't have that?
It would be similar to what we've said before, that sales tax and property tax don't generate enough revenue to support our city operations as it is.
We don't have those services. You said we're subsidizing businesses. So if we
I believe we
subsidize
do,
them,
certain
if
degree.
we ended them, that would mean that we'd be on the upside. If we're subsidizing them, we'd be on the upside, right? That's what it means.
Any other comment?
Okay, if you're going to do this tax, I'm lucky in my business in Temple City. Okay, because I only pay in Temple City, okay, the license fee based on how many employees I have. But if you go to this, okay, the charge will be tremendous because I own real estate and banking company, the gross income will be high, okay, but the net income will be reduced to only maybe 20%. So in that way, okay, I don't know how to justify, but I want to go back to some people talking about the business, okay, they don't pay the fair share. I totally disagree with them. Okay, if you don't have a business, then we don't have a sales tax. We don't have a property tax. Okay, they're paying a lot of service, they hire people. And that's why we have here. Okay, we allow the business over here, then we're going to raise all the resident taxes to pay for the service we have. Right now, we want to use to continue to improve more business come to West Covina so they can pay, okay, for our service. For example, no matter the property tax, no matter the sales tax, okay, for those things, and they create job, okay, for our city. That's what we need. We want to improve our business environment, okay, and to create more opportunity for our resident, okay, to job, okay, income, etc., etc. So to create this is more important than anything else. And regarding, okay, the business didn't pay fair share. Okay, now we have to charge them this and that. Okay, as myself, a business owner, I think I'm paying a lot of taxes. Not only that, I hire an employee, I pay for their taxes, employee taxes, this and that, work on everything, and try to keep the business survive. And same thing, the business in West Covina, they do exactly the same thing, they try to survive. And we as a government, we try to help them to continue to survive, okay, and profitable, so we can have a benefit. And if we're trying to do this way, and the reason I want to listen, how can be fairness charged? Okay, I'm willing to pay my fair share. I think our business community is willing to pay their fair share too, to help the economy and help our city, okay, because we are in the same boat. But the thing is this, it sounds like because we have deficit, okay, and we need to go through this and to try to get the $1.7 million, okay, in that way we can reduce, okay, maybe some of this cotton lead, okay, but the thing is so worried about, we are drinking, okay, some of like seawater, okay, and we try to balance the budget right now, but in the long run, okay, I think it's going to hurt us. It's going to, okay, drive the business out of West Covina, compare with other city. A lot of business just don't want to register business in our city. And then we will lose more money than gain. So we might be gain 1.7, but we might be losing $17 million of potential income. So in that way, in this model, that's why I asked, do we have a model number 3? Okay, because this model number 2, based on that, our West Covina city will be the most higher business license tax than any other surrounding city. Okay, in that way, okay, I don't know why the business want to come to West Covina, okay, they will go to Covina, go to the other city. So in that way, it's very difficult. It's not like I don't want to create income for the city, but we need to create an income sustainable and plus can continue to create more income for us. We must have a long-term plan to see the future, how we get 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and how we get more of the revenue to us. Okay, if we do this, we just put the Band-Aids over here, put the Band-Aid over there, it's not going to balance. We will run out of money again. So in that way, it's very difficult for me to push this into the ballot. And it's true. Okay, let's put it on the ballot, let the people to decide. Then why we get elected sitting over here to make a decision? We have to make a tough decision and let the resident to judge you. See, this is a good idea or not. So in that way, based on this model number 2, I think we'll hurt city in the long run rather than help the city. So I cannot approve it.
If I may, it seems like we've had discussions here and we're in the same boat we were before. So what I would like to suggest is that we hold off on this, pull it back. We still have some time. I know we're supposed to have another budget meeting on the 26th or something like that. Mayor Pro Tem's looking for number 3. See if you have another one that we can come up with. I had some concerns on a couple of the items that you went from 1,500 to 4,000. And then we went from 470 to 4,500. Is there some way we can tweak it now? Because I don't want Mayor Pro Tem to say, yes, I might buy off on this, and then not be happy with model number 3. So I'd like to see if we can get this held off, bring it back on the 26th, and talk about it again, because I'm not ready for it, because I know we don't have the votes on it to do it, and I don't want to take a vote on it if we don't have to. So I'd like to make a motion that we bring it back on the 26th.
Now we have to vote on it.
No.
We're going to vote on the motion.
On my motion. So I'll make a motion. Okay.
Yeah, before we do that, and I think that's fine, I think it'd be helpful to get some clarity is it just because everyone, would be worried about the rates and how high they are. So I just want to get from the council members, is the concept okay in terms of the gross receipts? It's just that the level of the rates is too high for their comfort, or is it more fundamental to the disparities between the different types, the different categories? Because there are these other models here. We didn't really talk about those much. The general idea of having some difference between the different kinds of industries makes some sense to me, but I'd hate to come back and then realize that it's not just the level of the rates and how much the taxes are, but it's something else too. So I think that would be helpful to find out if it's just the comps next to the other cities and what that would be.
Well, to answer that question, I think this is a rush process at this point. It's about revenue. It's not about updating the system. If you want to talk about updating the system, it's going to take more than 2 weeks of trying to jam this through by the time the deadline is. So that's where I'm at. But I think Tony's the one you wanted to hear from.
I don't think a week in such a complicated issue, I don't think they can come out the model number 3 and they can satisfy most of the people, including myself, about the concern I have. Well, because the point very important is this, and if this has happened, the consequence will be huge, and that huge will be really potentially hurt the city. So you better to find something that can be fair, okay, and for the business, let's think about this is okay. Otherwise, I don't know how you, in this such a short time, you can, from your head, to get a rabbit out, to say something is magical, can fix the thing, that this will be fair for the business and resident and the city current deficit, and we need looking for money. So I don't know you can do this in such a short time. I want something very detailed and something really go to survey, and something will be successful, and there will work.
We also, if I understood, we have until the 10th, is that what it said, the last deadline, August to do it? We have until August the 2nd. 10th,
I'll try and answer Mayor Pro Tem
10th.
Yeah. Mr. Wu's question, and that is, I think that's a tight deadline, and I'll be honest with that. But I do think that there's enough cities out there to have the gross receipts program that we can look at what other cities. Is there certain feedback that any of the council members wish for us to utilize tonight as we start looking at those other models? That would be helpful to help narrow that down as well.
So, I mean, it's just a matter of the level of the rates. The rates are just too high. That's just a matter of tweaking. That's not like a big conceptual, like, redo. That's just a matter of, like, lowering the rates. That's a very simple thing to do, actually. But if there is some issue with the, the gross receipts idea, then, possibly. I don't know. But if the concern is just the rates are too high, then that's actually not a very difficult thing to do at all. It's just to come back and show, like, what we could do with, like, lower rates, but with the same general idea.
Okay, how about let's do this? Okay, no matter what, much easier. Okay, I would say no. Okay, so let's get over with this thing. We find some other thing. Okay, no matter how you tweak. Okay, I won't say no on this model. Absolutely no.
So, from the census I have right here, we don't have the votes to pass it.
I'm still going to second your motion. I'd like a roll call vote.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, and a roll call vote. Yes.
Yeah, if I can ask a question, Mr. Mayor, is that, if we do this motion about putting stuff off, and let's say it fails 3-2, technically that means the motion's carried, and that it would require staff to do all that kinds of work for the next meeting. But if there's two people that have said they're not going to vote for it at the next meeting no matter what, it seems like it'd be a mistake to have staff go through all that time and effort on something that was not going to be done. But am I wrong in how I now, that if it passes the 3, there'll be direction that staff has to do that? No. Okay. Okay.
And roll call, please.
Yes. So that was, just to clarify, motion by Mr. Johnson, seconded by Mr. Warshaw, to bring back the item July 26th with an option number 3. Roll call vote. Spence?
No.
Toma?
Aye.
Warshaw?
Aye.
Wu?
Nope.
Johnson?
Aye. It passes 3-2. We shall go on now to item number 2, fiscal year 2018-19, the 4th preliminary budget workshop. City Manager, who will give us our...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We're going to have Ms. Lancaster provide an update on the preliminary budget workshop. We can give her a second, get the PowerPoint up and running.
And while she's doing that, if you do have a yellow speaker card that you'd like to turn in regarding item number 2, you can do so at this time.
Good evening. I just wanted to have a brief recap of where we have been. On July 2nd preliminary budget workshop, we started with a $7.5 million deficit. And on July 2nd, the City Council approved budget revisions decreasing the $7.5 million deficit by $4 million by approving this revisions before you. So at the end of July 2nd workshop, we ended with a $3.9 million deficit. And after the July 2nd budget workshop, staff had added a one-time revenue of $921,680, and that's from the proceeds from the sale of Sunset Field. we're anticipating that property to be sold for this fiscal year, which then the effect of that is a total decrease to the general fund operating deficit.
If I may add, Mr. Mayor, before Judy continues, that is the advancement that the city did for the purchase of the property on Lark Ellen. So that's a repayment of that the proposed fiscal year.
So with that revenue revision, then we are looking at a 2.9, almost a $3 million deficit, down from 3.9 to 2.9. And the $3 million deficit is divided into the operating deficit of 1.9 million and to replenish the general fund reserve to 17% level of 1.1 million. If I could refresh the council's memory, is that this 17%, it goes up and down as when the expenditures either go up or expenditures go down. It has a direct relationship to a 17%. And looking back into this, this is a 5-year projection of the general fund reserves. The changes that have been approved by council reflects that are structural ongoing cutbacks, like the fire, police, public works that the council have approved on July 2nd. As you can see, in the first 2 fiscal years, the cutbacks helped a little bit, but on the 3rd fiscal year, you will see that the purse cost and the medical costs are now somewhat swallowing up any savings. As a result, the fund balance becomes negative in the foregoing fiscal years. So with the rest of the presentation, I will turn it over to Mr. Freeland for council direction, closing the gap.
Thank you, Judy. Mr. Mayor, members of council, if you look at the city council direction regarding closing the gap, tonight we bring back a variety of measures and items for your discussion with you. First and foremost, I think we got direction on item number 1, which is the business license gross receipts program. So we'll move on to number 2. We are looking at, based on some information from Athens, we believe that we're going to get an additional $10,000 in revenue from franchise fees this coming fiscal year. So we're going to budget those in, unless anybody had any concerns about that. Revenue, we just recently received our ROPS letter saying that we should receive additional $43,196 for our administrative cap of the successor agency. We are reviewing the rest of the letter, see if there's any potential for other monies on the ROPS. They are paying back one of our loans to the tune of about $2.3 million this year. Unfortunately, I mean, it's just a movement, it's an accounting error, or not error, excuse me, accounting procedure. It's already in the reserve as an account receivable, and so now we'll have the cash. So it's really a wash, but again, we'll have more cash on hand. We've had the discussion about the SB1 funds for fiscal year 18-19. We are looking to delete the SB1 maintenance of effort funds for the previous fiscal year, 17-18. And the reason why is that the state was projecting that our city would receive around $900,000 or more in SB1 funds on the new gas tax, and the numbers coming in are be closer to $800,000. So in order to get $800,000 of our gas tax that should be allocated to West Covina, we have to pay $567,148 of general fund dollars to collect that $800,000. So go ahead.
Just to be clear, we'd have to spend $567,000 on roads, our roads, in order to get in it. So it's not like we're a net $300,000. It's we'd have to spend that $500,000 just to fix our roads and do whatever in order to get $800,000 of additional money from the state.
Additional road money. Thank you for that clarification. Absolutely. And that's what we've also decided for, like, as I mentioned, for fiscal year 18-19. And if Proposition 6 is, I'm trying to think, upheld, where the approved, we will assume that those monies are not going to be utilized, because at that point we will be spending around $567,000 again next year in order to receive about $900,000 in revenue for street projects only. We are working with a couple of projects right now, including Starwood Capital, as well as Athens on their contract amendments that are bringing in additional revenues, or excuse me, additional revenue for Starwood Capital. It's not actually a revenue in the sense of, it's actually they're paying for staff time and the attorney's time to put together agreements, and that is the same for AB 939, which is, we're having some discussions, but we'll be bringing back forward to the council the organics program. With the recycling program with regards to the state of California is starting to mandate, or it has mandated commercial recycling of organic waste, and so they're going to start moving forward with organic recycling for residents as well. And so those contracts and those discussions will be happening here probably in the next 30 or 60 days. But that's an AB 939 fund, which is a fund that's already been collected. We're just going to utilize some more of those funds for staff time and attorney time for the coming year. We've made additional personnel cutbacks in various departments, which we can share with you if need to back in closed session. The city clerk's office, we put some money back in there. As we were going through reviewing the city clerk's office budget, for example, there was monies in there to the tune of about $7,000 that was going towards the municipal code updates that are online, and we can't cut that. We need to make sure that the public has access to those information, as well as $10,000 for, there was copiers, which they have a copier. Those costs aren't going to go away, and some other items. We are recommending to go, instead of 4 additions to Discovery, down to 2. Which reduces from 60,000 to about 30,000. And then in addition, I'm recommending unfunding our community events budget. I think we went from 150 down to 50. I think it's imperative that the city does events. We just received the community donation from Royal Coaches. Annually in their contract, they provide a donation to the city for community events. And I think it's around $10,000.
I believe it's between the 2 areas, 15 to 20,000.
Okay. So between those 2 areas of 15 to 20,000 extra revenue, and we have monies in the foundation, we believe we'll have some money to do community events this year. We're not planning on doing an event as large as the 4th of July celebration this year. Even with 50,000, we couldn't do that. And I think it's important, I know I see some of the staff members out here. We've been talking to making changes in the structure, and we've actually started to notify unions as of today that folks are being laid off as part of this year's budget because of the challenges we do have. So I think it's difficult to say we're going to fund the general fund for community events at this time. Not saying that we shouldn't do events in the future, but it's hard to justify when we're letting the employees go. I would like to call down the fire chief now. See Larry come down. At the last meeting, I misspoke with regards to the business inspections program that we were talking about doing, so I'll let him have an opportunity to provide an update on that program and see if the City Council has an interest to move that forward as part of the fee and charge this year. Chief Whithorn.
Mayor, council, city staff, and everybody here. So we're going to talk about the inspection fees, correct? Okay. So historically, the fire department used to conduct business inspections. However, due to decreased staffing levels, staff resources were refocused only on state-mandated inspections. For example, state-mandated inspections include, but were not limited to, public assemblies, educational purposes, institutional facilities such as hospitals, nursing homes, jails, courthouse holdings, facilities, multifamily residential dwellings, and high-rise structures. Currently, the fire department only inspects businesses if requested for insurance purposes and or if there's a tentative improvement at the business. The fire department is recommended inspecting all businesses on an annual basis to ensure the business is following the requirements of the West Covina municipal codes and provisions of the California Fire Code. Under the proposed program, business will be inspected annually, and crews will also take the opportunity to become familiar with the layouts of the businesses and developing a pre-plan, which is a great benefit if a real emergency were to occur at the facility. An effective pre-plan involves both fire departments and the business owners working collaboratively. By understanding the advanced construction, occupancies, and the layouts of a building, especially if it's on fire, it makes the decision-making process of the fire command staff more effective and efficient. The proposed program would be utilized for light hazard commercial businesses. The occupancies would be B for businesses and M for mercantiles. And just to give you an example of what that means, it holds less than 50 people, such as a Starbucks, small restaurants, banks, nail salons, Mercantiles would be considered grocery stores, hardware stores, clothing stores, gas stations, and et cetera. But what's unique about this program that we're proposing as well is it will include a business safety and fire education, what we call a Be Safe component. And it's an educational program that will provide educational materials and self-inspection checklists that will allow the business owners to educate themselves and their employees how to correct potential violations before a business inspection is scheduled. So what would be going over with the business owners on the employees there is access to premises, egress, exiting, fire extinguishers, electrical, storage and housekeeping, combustible and flammable liquids and compressed gases, and fire protection equipment, and et cetera. The proposed inspection fee is based on the actual time to conduct the inspection. It would be prorated, so it would be an hour minimum. If it goes over and went over about an hour and a half, it would be based off that hour and a half. It would not go round up. The inspection fee would also include 2 inspections. So my understanding is the council wanted to know if we did an inspection, they had some corrections. If we came back and we charge them again, that would not happen. We would charge them an initial fee. If there was some potential, if there was violations found, we'd come back and the original fee would take care of that. Let's see. The inspections will be calculated using our new fire inspection software, Streamline Inspection, to ensure accurate timekeeping, and billing will be conducted by a third-party vendor. Do we have any questions?
So in the history of West Covina, do we have this inspection fee? Or this is a new procedure?
No, we do have inspection fees.
So currently, do we have? We don't, right?
For these inspections, we do not, unless they do it.
In the history of West Covina, do we have, okay, this inspection criteria or request, okay, to the business? Okay, we never done it before, right? Do we have we done this before?
Have we inspected? Yes, we inspected.
No. Do we have this kind of program? We charge them $100 a year, and then we send people to inspect because we hire additional person for this person to check all the business. Do we have this?
Would this be proposed right today? We do not have.
So we don't.
We do not.
Say, okay, please just say no. We don't.
Oh, I'm just.
Yeah, just okay. So this is a new program. We're going to do it for the public safety.
That's correct.
Okay, so for public safety, we're going to hire one person, pay the salary, benefit, okay, and charge all the business annually $100 or per square footage.
No, we're going to base it off an hourly, or if given direction, we could do it based off.
I don't know. And this is your proposal.
Right now, I'm proposing an hourly.
Hourly. So
yes.
So how much? Okay, there will be hourly charge to the business. We're talking about business only, right? We're not talking about the resident. We don't care about resident. We're talking about the business only. So the business, we're going to charge the business. So how you charge the business? You know, hourly. How you okay judge the hour? How many hours you're going to go to this business? Okay, let's say you go to the big business. They have 10,000 square feet. Or you go to a small business, a barber shop. It's 500 square feet. So how you decide how much, how many hours? Am I right? This is how you decide, right?
That's correct. But basically, yeah, it's an hourly rate. So to do a 1,000 square foot inspection should take about an hour. To do a larger 5,000, 10,000, it's going to take multiple hours.
So how much per hour?
It's $100.
So $100 per hour. So you go to the target. Okay, so you're going to check all the places possible. It take how many hours?
It could take 4 hours.
So 4 hours, $400. So target possible in, okay, West Covina target proposed will be $400 annually. It's an annual inspection, right?
Annual inspections, that's correct. But if they had violations, we would come back.
Oh, of course. Then you charge them again.
No, we would not charge them again.
Okay, no charge again. Just charge them one time, $400. But how do you know they have a violation?
Well, that's where the inspectors will be out there.
So basically, you go to inspect the property, okay, with let's say target, okay, then you go through the inspections, then it's about 4 hours, okay, so 4 hours, okay, you charge them $400, okay, and then you go into the barber shop, okay, 500 square feet, you only 10 minutes, but its minimum charge is 1 hour.
That's correct.
So $100. So the small business barber shop have to pay now our fire department for $100.
But an inspection will take longer than 10 minutes. We just don't walk in. That's what the whole checklist is in educating them. It would not take 10 minutes.
I have been inspect my office plenty of time, 10 minutes. Okay, they come in, they check the plug, they check your extinguish, okay, see the expiration date, 10 minutes. And then they give me a ticket. They say, okay, you have to improve this and that. I have done this. I have multiple offices, so I've done this for 20 years. So I know some of the office, maybe a big office, maybe longer, but it's okay. The point is how long you inspect. It's okay. Just you make sure the plug, this and that, they go through and they see any potential fire hazard, or so they need to do a correction. I understand. Okay, I got the request to correct some of the outlets. Some agent put over there. They put too many plugs. They need to be correct. I understand. So in that way, it's not a bad idea. Okay, I'm not against the idea. I'm just want to know this is for the public safety, or this is just we want to balance the budget. We want to make sure this is come from this is why we want to make sure our city is safe, the business is safe. So the people over there, okay, to shop over there, they are safe. So in that ground, it's a public safety. I'm all for it. But if you just try to get an additional fee to balance our budget, then I have a problem with that. So that's why I asked you a question. Okay, how we do this? Since we never have this program before, now we want to implement this program. So we want to understand, is this program that will really help the business safety and make sure, okay, and the business will comply with the requirement by the fire department. Because all the business started, they all by the fire department to make sure everything, and sometimes you go to check about their fire extinguisher, it's expiration day, right? So in that way, all the business in West Covina will be inspected by you guys. Am I right?
That's correct. We're already expecting state mandated. We're asking to include business and mercantiles. This is not a revenue generating program. This is to provide public safety. Our current Fire Prevention Bureau we have no full-time employees. They're part-time. We're struggling. This is going to pay for a full-time fire inspector to help put this program together.
Very good. But my question is this: if this is for public safety, why not in the regular council meeting? Why this put you into the special budget meeting? Okay, special budget meeting. We are trying to balance the budget. If this belongs to the public safety, it should be the agenda into our common city council meeting. So I'm kind of confused. Okay, I'm all for it if this is for public safety, but I just worry about this. This is just public safety on the outlook, but inside we just want to gouge business again and try to get more money. Okay, and try to see what we can squeeze here, squeeze there. Okay, some money coming in, but it's not really for public safety. So this is a concern I have. I hope this is just really will help, to our business, any public area, that should be safe.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Wu asked if we do these inspections, and you said we didn't, but we do them, right? On an emergency basis or on some kind of basis, and how do we build for those, or how does that work?
Okay, so
because it sounded like we did do them.
Okay, the inspections, when we do a tenant improvement, we do them. Yes.
And how many of those is that?
Well, that depends. I don't have the data with me.
Some kind of. I mean, is it a lot? Is it little? I mean, I don't. Do you know? I mean, because I'm trying to figure out like how many more inspections are we talking about? We're talking about we only do 10 a year, and then now we're going to suddenly show up and say, hey, we're going to do these inspections. Congratulations.
The business inspection is going to be another 2,000 added on to the already.
It's going to be 2,000 added on to what we already do.
Yes.
And do we bill for the ones we do now?
Yes, we do. Those are state mandated.
And we bill $100.
I don't have those. Those are.
We don't know what we bill for the ones.
Well, I don't have it in front of me here on the state mandated.
Okay. Do you know?
We can pull up the fee, and we can pick up the fee schedule if that's what you want us to do. We can do that while everybody else asks some questions.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
I'm just say that I'm amazed that we haven't inspected our businesses. I would expect and I would hope that every resident, I don't care what city they live in, they come and they shop in the city of West Covina, they assume the business they go into, they are safe, fire safe. And everything from your fire extinguishers, your plugs, you go into your fast food places or any of those, make sure that they don't have excess grease, they don't have this all over the place. And I am amazed that we haven't did this in the past. So I'm all for this program myself. Anybody else?
Thank you. I'm for this program too, but didn't we used to do this program 10 or 15 years ago?
Not what's being proposed here, talking about the educating the Be Safe component.
Right, but we did do the inspection.
When we were fully staffed,
right,
we would.
Right.
Yes.
We did.
Yes, but not to what's being proposed here.
Right, but
yes.
we did do the inspection portion. We didn't do all the other training.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I just want to make sure it was clear. Where the chief mentioned right now our Fire Prevention Bureau is staffed by part-timers, we have one authorized full-time position, which we've been utilizing 2 part-timers in lieu of that position. And so what this position, actually there will be no addition of any positions. The current staff will take care of these inspections. So we're not going to be adding any additional staff by doing this program.
The information we got last week was in error then?
No, as I told you, I didn't have all the information at that time. I needed to get an update.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question. So okay, I know you when you have a restaurant, and the restaurant they always have for FDA, right?
I'm sorry.
FDA. Okay, they give you the rating and they check county will check health department.
The health department.
I think they once a year, right? They once a year check the restaurant. Okay, make sure that everything in the safe. Okay, make sure the food is safe and the way it's clean. If they see a drop of rat or a cockroach, they shut you down. Okay, to make sure the consumer have a healthy food they provide and we pay for it. So if again I say it's for public safety, I'm all for it to make sure the space, okay, and without any potential fire hazard, okay, and to check the exit. Do they have a light? Okay, the light so people can see. Okay, how can they push out if they have a potential fire? Okay, do they put any some kind of stuff in the gate to block the exit so people cannot go out, or they lock the place so in that way when they have some issue they cannot get out. So let's I think it's a good thing to really to make sure the business comply with the safety. So for that inspection once a year to make sure all the business comply, I think it's a necessity. It's necessary to do it. But what I say again, the only thing I worry because put you into the budget. Okay, it sounds like we try to increase this inspection. So let people feel like this is try to get extra money. Okay, and this is what I'm saying. Is this should be a regular agenda? Then I have really no problem to see if in the city for a long time we don't have our fire marshal or somebody to check the business to make sure they comply. Okay, and they don't have any potential issue. Okay, because when this thing happen, then somebody get hurt. Okay, and then we want to avoid that. And the fire has electric stuff is very, very potentially become an issue, and that is what you want to see. Okay, and my business I have been inspected so many times. Okay, and I used to it. Okay, so I know, but I don't know which Covina don't have that. We never have this inspection. Only have 20 years ago. Really, so this 10, 20 years, we're just lucky. We just nothing happened because we don't have inspection. So everybody comply.
No, we do inspections. We just have not. We focus since our staffing has gone down. We focus on state mandated. We want to bring back people back into the bureau so we can start doing the business and mercantile inspections that's being proposed here.
So when you say state mandate, okay, so meaning what? You only inspect per request or per somebody call you?
That's required by the state. Those that I had mentioned earlier, I go back over them again. But
I have the list and the fees if you'd like me to present that.
Place of assemblies.
Like for example, I remodel the thing, I call it, then we need a fire department to check. From the beginning of the business, they always have a fire department to check.
Anytime a new construction, we're going to, along with building and
but I'm talking about existing business.
Existing, yes, but there's existing business, if you will, that are under the state mandated that every year the fire departments have to inspect. So we do.
So
do
you're
those.
already doing.
No, we do those, yes, but we're trying to incorporate the businesses and the mercantiles as well, because, if we only inspect them when they do a tenant improvement and we go 10 years, and don't see them for another tenant improvement, doesn't mean that fire violations don't exist. As you mentioned, you're very correct. They can have combustible storages blocking the exit ways. The exit lights are out. And if we go annually, we'll be able to catch that and be proactive and help prevent fires before they happen. Incorporating also the pre-plans that I talked about.
So when you say state mandate, how often you inspect? You say once a year or?
The state mandate, yeah. it depends. Some are once a year, some are twice a year, depending on the occupancy.
What kind of inspection you perform?
A life safety inspection.
So it's similar to what you want to.
It's going to be very similar to this. The difference is we're incorporating with the businesses, trying to educate them a little bit more with the checklist. So that way,
if they have a state mandate and we are going to use the city mandate, is it redundant? Does they have a both? Okay, or do they have a different inspection? Okay, I'm kind of confused over here. You said you're already doing annually state mandate inspection to the business, right? Right.
Yes.
Okay, and now you say you want to propose a city inspection. We're going to give them a checklist for
Let me, if I can interject, I think the disconnect is the state mandated is only a small amount of businesses in town. And what I mean by that is, I got the list here, daycare facilities, convalescent homes, hospitals, high-rise buildings, hotel, motels, and apartments.
Got it.
He wants to add, or we're proposing to add other businesses.
No wonder he's a city manager. Okay.
That's my guy, right?
No. What I'm saying is this. Okay, so state mandate is only a small portion of the business community. It's not for everybody.
That's correct.
So now you want this for everybody. So all the business, no matter the barber shop, real estate company, or insurance company, or any kind of lawyer, attorney firm, they all have to be inspected.
Anything that falls in the occupancy of business or mercantile, we would like to inspect annually to make sure that we check for violations. Okay.
Mr. Mayor, can I present some of the fees that were requested? So the state mandated inspection fees for a daycare facility, which is commercial, is $338 as a flat fee. A residential daycare is $135. Convalescent hospital is $542. Hospital, $1,016. Medical facility, $542. High-rise building up to the 6th floor is $1,016, and it's $271 for each floor thereafter. Hotels, motels, and apartments up to 20 units is $327, and then each units thereafter, it goes up to over 60 units is $573. That is all.
So am I understanding this then, those businesses that you listed that we do annually, they all have fees well above $100. So is the idea then we would give them this checklist and also a bill for $100 after their inspection? Is that what the goal of this is for those that are currently being inspected?
We're not going to add to the state mandated.
You're not going to add to the state mandated stuff?
No, state mandated is going to stay the same.
Okay, so then the idea is, and see, this is where I believe Mr. Wu is correct, that, this discussion, we're all talking about it in the context of fees. We're not talking about the public policy of whether or not who should be inspected and how. Because to me, it seems like that's what we should be talking about, is whether or not business, mercantile, everyone should be done a year, and then figuring out whether that's a good public policy and then how we implement it. We're doing it backwards because we're trying to figure out how to get money with the fees. And I believe that in the context of this budget discussion, that's the problem. And that's the problem having a lot of these. If we want to talk about doing this program or some kind of program, or whether or not all those businesses need to be inspected every year, we should have that discussion in that context rather than the fee context. But that said, because I do think that is the fundamental problem we're having, or I'm having with a lot of this. Why is it that the state does not require annual inspections of other kinds of businesses? I'm kind of curious. I have no idea. Why would they mandate it? I understand daycare, yeah, sure, but there's lots of businesses that you think, if it was that important, the state, which is not shy in regulating lots of different areas, why haven't they focused on this, if this is a glaring public policy oversight, why aren't they focused on it? I'm trying to figure out why that would be. Do you know, or?
No, I don't know. They focused at these certain documents that I talked about as being state mandated that everybody should do, and then they allow the area having jurisdiction to decide if they want to do the other occupancies. So
then what will be different if we're charging some of those $300, $500, whatever, I don't know how we got to that number, that compared to the other ones, it's only going to be $100. What's the difference between the inspections?
Some of those are multiple. You have to go out multiple times.
Oh, so those are actually more than annual, some of those?
No. So you go out and inspect. They have issues, violations, and you go back out again, and you go out a third time. And that fee covers if we have to go out there 3, 4, 5 times.
Okay, so this would not be an inspection in the sense where there's violations that they would have to correct?
No, they still have to correct.
No, I mean
everybody has
the
to
new
correct
ones. The new ones. I mean the new ones.
The new ones, if they have violations, and we have to come back out. The second inspection.
That's the $100 pop thing.
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess that's why I'm a little confused. I was asking what the difference was between, the ones we currently charge and the $100 fee. And the answer was that we have to go out multiple times to those, and so we would go out multiple times to the $100 fee too, right? From my hearing. So I guess I'm still trying to figure that out. See, I think, again, this is a discussion of public policy that we're really focused on trying to get money through the fees. And I guess I'm trying to figure out, I still don't know what the difference that would be between those two.
Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate Mr. Spence's position. However, annually, that's what the budget is. It is a policy document to establish fees and programs for a city. It's common that actually cities adopt a fee schedule with their budget and introduce those new fees as part of the adoption of the budget. Tonight, we're not asking you to adopt this fee. Tonight, we're asking you for conceptually, do you agree with this fee or want us to include it as a part of the fee and charge program that we plan to bring back to you in August for the annual adoption? So that's for just clarification. But
then in that case, I can tell you I have no idea because we haven't taken the time to figure out what it's going to be and what the study is going to be and exactly what's going to be included in that. So if you're asking that tonight, that would be my answer.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I believe that the difference in these inspections, that being some of them only $100, is you're not looking at a bunch of hotel rooms. You're looking at one space that might not have anything in it, and that's probably a very little time. Whereas when we talked about what these state inspections are, they're a lot more intense because of the type of building that they are compared to, well, I mean, if you look at what they are, they're where people are living. Those are your daycare, your hospitals. People are there 24 hours a day. So those are more expensive. They take a lot more time if I'm not incorrect on it. My question for you is, so we go out and we find some violations. And we say, go fix them. And then we say, we're going to be back, and depending on how long it might take to fix, let's say 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. What happens if they haven't fixed it?
Well, we hope that they work with us and we work with them. Well, generally, if they're not a life immediate violation where it has to be removed right there and then, we generally give them 14 calendar days. So we'll come back and re-inspect. And if we see that they're making progress, if there was 3 things that they had needed to be done, A, B, and C, and let's say they got A, B done, well, they're working towards it because maybe they couldn't get C done because a contractor couldn't do it. We work with them and say, great, we'll give you another 14 calendar days. Now, if we have businesses that just absolutely are not going to work with us and we're there 3, 4 times and not doing it, then we do a non-compliance fee of $550. And that seems to grab their attention, and then they're more than willing to
That's
start.
$550 for that inspection again? Or is there
for just when we come back, if they didn't do what needed to be done, it's a non-compliance fee.
Okay. And would we start charging for inspections again?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Do you want the other one or
No.
no?
All right. If we can go back to the PowerPoint. The next item is we just were told this past week that we are losing one of our planning assistants. And so therefore we are going to unfund in that position and not be able to fund it at this time. And then lastly, we have a balance in our public safety augmentation fund. That is part of a tax that's collected, a sales tax collected statewide that is passed on to cities to be used for public safety purposes. And so we're going to utilize this $131,000 balance that we have in there to not supplant any of our police programs, but to utilize it for some of our current programs to help reduce the budget. So with that, we're asking for council, if you wish to go through each line item to see if they're okay with them. And then that'll help close the gap to around about a $1.7 million gap. And then we would seek comments from the public, or do you want to see that now before we move on to those discussions?
I think I'd like to open up the public comment first, then we'll make our decision afterwards. Okay, now we just open up the public comment again.
Thank you, Mayor. Your first public comment speaker is Sammy Arvizu. 5 minutes on the clock.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. I actually just found out that the issue that I wanted to talk about is going to be addressed in a closed meeting on 7/17/18, so I just wanted to make a point of that as well. But tonight I'm here to address matters concerning the budget workshop for 2018-2019, in particular the operating budget for Public Works and the proposals to restructure the department. The Public Works Department has recently been made aware of restructuring, including the elimination of all maintenance worker 1 and 2 positions. I would like to ask the council, what are the strategic goals of this restructuring? And if there were any social or demographic considerations made alongside the physical analysis to this restructuring process. And then I also had a couple keynotes that I would like to address to the council as well. First being that I don't disagree that change needs to be made to this department. My concern is if the methodology is correct for moving the department forward. I like to address an issue that I heard said earlier, and I like the terminology, but I do believe that overhaul and modification is needed in the department, particularly in the area of asset management. And then I would also like to address how our current MOU is seniority based, and it's not based in education, training, and certification of employees. And then I would also like to address how this restructuring process would affect the families of a lot of these employees who are going to be laid off. And my final point is I would like to address the fact of the employees that are here tonight from the Public Works Department. I do believe that the employees here tonight are employees that take a lot of pride in working here at the City of West Covina. And I'd also like to note that many of these are younger maintenance 1 and 2 workers, whereas the workers that aren't here because well, their jobs are protected based in seniority and not in job performance. And that concludes what I have to speak to the council about tonight. Appreciate your time.
The next speaker is Gilbert Luna.
Good evening, Mayor and Councilman. I'm not as technical as Sammy. Sammy got it all written down, and I wish I had his brain, but I'm just more of a character based on all of us. I mean, you know, I've been here for about 1.5 years, and it's been a pleasure. I was in the private sector for 10 years, general construction. And when I came aboard, it was just like a dream come true. This city is beautiful. I'm from LA, so you know, every day coming over here is like a little vacation because it's so beautiful and everybody's so nice. I wish it could have been different. I understand your guys' position, you know, being here for about 1.5 years. I'm pretty sure you guys go home like with tons of stress on your head, you know, seeing our faces, everybody else, you know, and every department, and just wondering, like, you know, how is it that we can keep the city moving and everybody happy, you know. I can't plead for my job anymore because I was told that it's done, you know. They gave us a projection date on when our last day is. I'm up here hoping that maybe we can move it. At least, I mean, it's literally like 3 weeks, you know. I have a family as well as these guys, you know. It's kind of hard to make changes in 3 weeks. I'm hoping that maybe you guys can all get together. You guys are smart, and just maybe move that August 9th deadline a little farther, even if it's just 1 extra week, give us a month. because I think we all deserve it. Like Sammy said, everybody that's in here in the orange shirt, I worked alongside of them, and they're Class 8 people. They all care. And even the people that are not here, bro, like, they're all good people, you know? We all bust our butt. So if council sees it fit to maybe extend that August 9th deadline, if possible, you know, we'd all appreciate it. The ones that are on the chopping block, you know? But I just want to once again say it's been a pleasure. I think I'm already saying my goodbyes, but it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you guys for the opportunity.
The next speaker is Mr. Jim Grivich.
This is Jim Grivich. Normally I give you a chart with some numbers on it. This time I'm going to go back to where I was in college as a political philosophy major. And I actually was inspired to do this by Bill Robinson, who made a statement last time, and I'd like to repeat what he said. Why are the heavily burdened poor supporting the pampered rich? That's what's happening in this city. You have public safety employees who average $240,000 a year in compensation. That's what's happening. That's what they're making. By any standard, that's rich. Atlantic Magazine recently, that's a liberal magazine, not a conservative one, talked about the new aristocracy. People who make $200,000 a year, and yet their standard of living is constantly going up, and yet the poor standard of living is gradually sinking. I just don't understand how that can happen in this city. Last year, Transparent California, and thanks to Jerry Patras for doing the research on this, came up with the $240,000 number. That was a $20,000 increase over what it was last year. Last year, 2016, public safety made $220,000 a year in compensation. In 2017, it went up by almost 10% to $240,000. That's according to Transparent California. The huge raise, that would have paid for all these men that we're talking about laying off. That one raise. And what was the raise in? It was mostly in overtime, increased overtime, and in increased retirement pay. Except it wasn't really retirement pay, and I want to talk about that. Public safety employees get to retire at age 50 if they want to, but usually it's a little bit later, like 52. How many people in this country can essentially get 80% of their salary for 25 years? Because if you retire at 52, you're going to get the money to mid-70s anyway. That's the life expectancy. 25 years. So but Bill Richardson said that the working poor are subsidizing the pampered rich. They're talking about people being paid for 25 years and not working. And when the city talks about fire and police services, they're not talking about actually improving services, are they? All the money goes to the folks not working anymore after they're 50. That's where all the new money's going. Now, it's been said in previous meetings that the city council doesn't have a whole lot to say about what goes on in retirement. That's not true. The city council negotiated with the unions here at the city to establish the current retirement system. It was not imposed by the state of California. The city negotiated that retirement system. The city can change it. And let me just be specific about it. I spent 5 years of my life as a chief negotiator. I know something about how collective bargaining works. And I negotiated with one of the toughest unions in the country. It's called the American Federation of Teachers. It is possible to do trade-offs. You're in a situation where people are going to start losing their jobs. I was surprised I hear about it right now. I thought it was going to be a year from now, but okay. That's hardball in negotiations, right? And let me just give you one example of something that could be done. When employees talk about wanting a raise, fine, we'll give you a raise, but you have to use that raise to pay increased employee contribution to your retirement system. Raise the contribution rate, let's say from, I think it's currently 9%, raise it to 11%. Okay, you can have a 2% raise. So why would they want to do that? Because the money from their raise goes to their contribution to PERS. Well, it doesn't cost the city to give a raise that way, anything. It's free to the city. Yet the employees actually get something out of it, because when they put money into a retirement system, it's their money. That's just an example of something that can be done in real negotiations. It's called a trade-off. And that way, you can not have to spend any money for compensation. And there's other things that can be done. You can change the rate. You can stop the practice. Oh, that's it.
He's going to take it.
Okay, you can stop the practice of thinking that you have to accommodate what the unions want. That's essentially what I'm trying to say.
Next speaker is Fabiola Wong, to be followed by Bill Robinson.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem. I could not agree more than with the previous speaker. Well said. I would like to raise concerns related to reducing expenditures. As is evident, we have a group of maintenance workers here whose jobs are on the line, which means there's going to be reduction on city services, which affect us, the community. And I'm not okay with that. You know, the city has had, historically, the city has had the philosophy of being business-friendly, never charging what it is to the cost to provide services. I've seen it with development. There were no impact fees. Oh, no, they can't pay that. Oh, who's going to upgrade the infrastructure? And we have been subsidizing businesses, development in this city. And it has been an undue burden to this community. As you can see it tonight, these people are going to lose their jobs. Again, we are being affected. And we don't have a utility tax, which I'm okay in paying. You know, city council should go out to the community and ask what kind of services we want to have, the level of service we're willing to pay for. You know, I hear every proposition from staff being shut down constantly, but I don't hear any proposals. How are you going to fix the budget efficiency? How are you going to keep moving the city forward? Everything is no, there's a problem. Oh, no, the community, the business community can't pay for anything. Why don't we subsidize them? So I hope you got a plan that you're going to disclose to us pretty soon, and how are you going to address the budget issues? Simply just saying no, and why are you going to do this, and why do they have to pay? I don't do this in Temple City. Well, this is West Covina, and plenty of cities do collect appropriate fees. Fees that pay the user's fee that are paid for people that use the services. Simple as that. Although I didn't speak related to the business license restructuring, I am supportive of having that change. You know, the city can't continue just doing business as usual. We're in trouble. We can't meet our own liability for pension, and there has to be changes. So I hope to hear from you guys. How are you going to fix the budget issue? How are you going to continue providing the services? And how are you going to move the city forward? I'm looking forward to that. Thank you.
The next speaker is Bill Robinson, to be followed by Jerry Patras.
Why'd you start the time? I haven't said anything yet. I get 5 minutes.
It has been reset, Bill. You may begin when you're ready.
Good evening, gentlemen. I am Bill Robinson, resident. You have dug us quite a hole, gentlemen. Your fiscal mess is now considered a so-called emergency. Special meeting. Emergencies are earthquakes, fires, and floods. This is only a budget session. It's not an emergency. Today, West Covina voters are discovering the heavy consequences for electing Santa Claus to the council 5 years ago. We have not had an elections for a while. You added a year to your terms, which has substantially worsened our fiscal mess. The fiscal deficit has continued for years and should have been dealt with years ago, and elections haven't helped so far. It seems that the only way out of this unaddressed deficit and avoiding bankruptcy is the following. Take this to your closed session bargaining units. Number one, immediately implement rotating mandatory furloughs citywide of all staff positions. Number two, including rotating closures of each fire station 1 day a week. Third, overtime allowance privileges should be granted only by the police and fire chiefs exclusively. The action I recommend: declare a fiscal emergency and start mandatory rotating furloughs for all departments, everyone. Then wait patiently as we gradually work our way back to fiscal health. This is just a temporary problem triggered by poor management and poor oversight, and refusing to heed many warnings by the residents over many years. We've wasted a lot of time so far on the revenue side. These folks don't need to be laid off at all. Some say that cities cannot unilaterally impose unpaid furloughs unless it first makes a last, best, and final offer and declares a bargaining impasse. It now seems apparent that the council should not have granted any pay raises in the past 5 years. Thinking about the budget mess and these legal dilemmas which are associated, has the staff duped you folks? Please balance the budget before you pass it, and find the holes and fill them, and then honor that plan, and then don't deviate. Stick to the plan once it's balanced. But first, demand the bargaining units return all implemented pay and benefits granted these past 5 years. Or if they refuse, declare an impasse, and then implement rotating furloughs citywide. I want to share some case law that this is for the entertainment of the city attorney. There's the City of Long Beach case, 2012. Also, the City of Los Angeles versus Superior Courts. It's a June 2013 opinion written by Justice Kennard, California Supreme Court. It talks about mandatory furloughs for city employees. These folks don't have to be laid off. If you make everybody part of the solution, instead of wasting your time in the meeting on nickel and diming increasing your revenues. I mean, this is a solution. This is a solution that would put the budget, if implemented, back in. But all your bargaining, it's going to be like better than the Big League Dreams fireworks celebration. a week ago. So West Covina has an ongoing structural deficit. Okay, unless the voters demand positive change by electing responsible, knowledgeable individuals who will give priority to the needs of the community and its residents over the insatiable demands of the public employee unions, until the city is on a sound financial footing and service levels are restored to acceptable levels, and some staff management has been changed, the solution will only continue to worsen. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Jerry Patras, to be followed by John Shoemaker.
Excuse me. Budgets are either managed or they manage us. And we've gotten to where the budget's managing us. I don't agree with your definition of the public sector budget. They're planning documents. They reflect the priorities of the decision makers. You don't sit and just keep throwing fees and fees and fees. These young men showed up, my view's like Jim, a year before I thought. My view is also like Bill. In education, we do furloughs before we do layoffs. These young men should not be the first to go. Budget funding, I don't care what public sector agency it is. It's tax money and you stay with it. I've talked to a couple of the council members and they seem to think education is just funded differently. It's not. It's still tax money. It requires planning. And you're not doing, staff is giving you bad advice. I don't necessarily blame the council. You're residents like we are. You got elected to do something and you take advice. In 40 years, I've never seen this happen. We have so many problems that just coming up with a fee here and a fee there and laying off a few lower paid employees isn't going to solve the problem. I'm concerned about a lot of issues, but I think I'm going to get too mad right now to continue. Thank you.
The next speaker is John Shoemaker, to be followed by Chris Miller.
I see the Magic Act has come back. I'm looking at the numbers, and they're talking about how the general fund reserves are going up or down, not expenses. And the prime thing that I looked at was that $900,000 that reduced the general fund deficit doesn't pay for 1 penny of operations. It's park funds. Has to be spent on buying new parks. So if the money people at Queen of the Valley wrote a check for $4 million, it does not mean our operating deficit is reduced $4 million. But this person over here is trying to make you think by saying, oh, our general fund number deficit goes down $4 million. The reserve or whatever the case may be. Yeah, it might. But operating expenses don't go down 1 penny. Adding fees for safety. And we're not hiring anybody? The police chief specifically said, we're taking 2 people who are part-time, making 1 full-time person. We're not hiring any staff. What? Oh. Oh, we're going to hire, we are hiring? Or? Oh, the fire chief, I'm sorry, fire chief. So why is the fee? You're going to be utilizing staff that you have to do a job. It's a way of getting money. Not couching under, well, it's for public safety. Well, then why aren't you hiring somebody? Union seniority. Oh, by the way, leases. I don't know, all the leases I've ever been involved in, I've somehow ended up paying the property tax as the leasee. Because the leaseor says, here's how much I'm charging you, and it's going to include this, this, and this. And at the year end, we make everything come, makes an assumption of what the taxes and maintenance and other fees are going to be, and at some point in time says, here's the difference. Usually it's always going up, never going down, but once in a while it's the other way. Again, these cuts, people who have said about furloughs and things like that, I think I talked about, negotiating, pay reductions. I know where we can save about $200,000 and we'd probably be better off because we wouldn't be having bad decisions being made constantly. How many jobs would that save? There's ways that we can do things, except it takes people who are willing to do it and have look at things over more than a couple minutes. And we talk about taxes, whether it's utility tax, whether it's a sales tax, whether it's anything. Somebody could walk in here and hand you a check for $10 million. And next year, we're going to be right back talking about the same thing. There's been nothing. I cannot believe that a person could submit a budget that originally said we're going to spend $66 million, and it magically turned into 62, and I and others got up here and said you're going to spend closer to $68 to $69 million. How much did we spend? $69 million. Now, why don't you ask the question, how did I know that and the person who's responsible for it didn't know that? Was it willful neglect or just an inability to do the job? And how could you not know it a few months into the year that you're overspending your budget? And then this year, overspend a $62 million budget to 69. How would you not know 2 or 3 months into the year that we're spending way more than we're bringing in? Again, it's either just, I'm not going to tell anybody, or the person didn't know, and either one of them isn't good. I mean, financial analyst for years. What would you do if a CFO or head of a company that was $60 million spent $70 and didn't know about it until May of a fiscal year? Would you say invest in that company or lend them money? But that's what you want the people to do when you sit here and say, let's increase taxes. Let's get the financial house in order, and I'll support you on taxes, but get one thing in order first. Thank you.
I just like to say, Chris Miller, I just like to say that I agree with everything that Jim, Bill, Jerry, and John said. And I have a couple additional items. On the previous slide, it brought up the franchise tax from Athens, which really does not make any sense at all because I just got my Athens bill and it's $5 increase. Now, in a community of, let's say, 100,000 people, 4 people per home, that's 2,500 or 25,000 homes. That's $125,000. So there's 4 bills a year. Why is it only $10,000 and not $500,000? How many homes do we have in West Covina that all have to have trash? And then on top of it, you have all the commercial that I'm sure the franchise fee is more than $5. SB1 funds, which back in the day of, we were talking about Glendora Avenue, that those funds had to be put on that. Couldn't actually go to roadway, but we could take roadway out and put it in a lawn. So we're talking about this again, and the push of Go Human. This is ridiculous. We're basically laying people off when we could do things right. We laid off last year, a year before, 3 automotive workers and brought in Ford. How cash positive are we from that? Do we save anything, or are we just the same or actually spending more? You're laying these guys off. Is a firm coming in to take over their jobs? Are we going to end up saving anything or spending more? Yet, we can give raise after raise that was just announced, 2% and 2% bonus to others. Where are our priorities? Why are there, favors being done in the city at the expense of, city workers that actually that provide benefit to the city and taxing people into oblivion? Thank you.
The next speaker will be Ray Edmondson, to be followed by Nick Preciado.
Good evening, Council. My name is Ray Edmondson. I have two comments and a question. My first comment is that those fire fees, it doesn't matter when we're talking about and when we impose it. I think we should do it tonight and get that started as soon as we can, because I don't know if any of you have ever picked up a fire extinguisher needing to use it and then found it empty, but that happened to me once, and that was a really bad day. So the sooner we can get that going, the better. In regards to our constant, this is going to cause businesses to leave West Covina, so will bankruptcy, and so will cutting a bunch of services. If police aren't going to respond for 2 hours because they just don't have the manpower to a burglary call, that's going to cause businesses to leave West Covina too. Those are my two comments. My question is about overtime. I don't know how much information can be given about this. I don't know how much is confidential in contract negotiations. I hear people talking a lot about overtime, and I see on Glassdoor and all those things, the overtime costs are increasing. I don't have any background in business. My degree's in microbiology. I don't understand any of those negotiations. But it was my impression from listening to some of the conversations that the overtime is going up because we have minimum staffing levels that we have to have, but we don't have the people there. We don't have the amount of employees, so the remaining employees have to fill those positions to get overtime pay, and that's why the overtime is going up. I would like some clarification, and then we're not hiring additional people instead of paying that overtime because the benefits and PERS costs and stuff actually makes it cheaper to just pay this overtime. Could I get an explanation on whether or not that's correct? And if it's not correct, could I be corrected on that? Thank you.
And your final speaker on item number 2, Nick Preciado.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I was born and raised in this city, West Covina, all my life. I've taken a lot of pride in growing up here, and I was very proud. I was here part-time for 6 years and stood loyal to this city just to get an opportunity to get a full-time position here. And today, I was informed that I'm one of the employees who is getting laid off. I wanted to be know that I'm one of 21 maintenance workers that got notified that they're getting laid off today. And from the young group of maintenance workers, there's a couple employees that have been working here 20 plus years. And today they were told that August 9th will be their last day of work as well. On August 10th, they will no longer be here. I just want to make it notice that the city yard will be operating with only 12 employees, and I don't know what kind of service the city will be getting running 12 employees. Have a good night.
Mayor, that concludes your public comment speakers for item number 2.
Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to say anything before I close the public comment? Okay, hearing none, I'll close the public comment. City Manager, you have any comments about what's brought up tonight?
I think so. I think Ms. Barlow wanted to talk about the case that Mr. Robinson brought up.
Yes, on the subject of furloughs, Mr. Robinson was kind enough to mention the case names to me. In the Los Angeles case that went to the Supreme Court held that the city was required to arbitrate the issue of furloughs before they could impose them. And in the Long Beach situation, Long Beach ended up paying $3.9 million in back wages to employees that they furloughed without meet and confer. So we can't simply furlough employees. We also can't just say we're going to furlough employees and then negotiate with them and then furlough employees. We actually have to meet and confer in good faith under the Myers-Mills-Brown Act to do that. You know, that it's not an option that we can just adopt. So I wanted to make that clear.
Just for clarification, one of the speakers talked about the $921,000 with regards to Sunset Field sales. The monies have not been received from Sunset Field sale. Those are hoping to come in May of this year. What has happened is the city advanced monies originally to purchase some property out of our general fund. That money is going to replenish the reserves. It's not being used for the ongoing expenditures of the city. Part of what we're doing as this budget policy or this budget process is to reduce expenditures, find areas if there are for revenue enhancements, but also replenish the reserves. That $921,000 will help replenish our reserves. The fire inspector position keeps being brought up. We have a vacant fire inspector, full-time fire inspector position right now. It's called a fire protection specialist. That position is vacant, was not hired this year, and we had 2 part-timers who are seasoned individuals who've been doing it. One of which is saying that she's going to retire, and so we are looking to fill that position. But that's something that's already been budgeted for. So that position, now that's full-time, will be one of the duties, will be these inspections we've been talking about. Certainly.
What are they doing now that they won't be doing? Or is it the 2 part-time positions don't equal the one? How many hours difference is that?
I'd have to ask the chief what their schedules are. And while the chief's coming down, one of the comments brought up by one of the employees is about the city's layoff policy. And the policy is based on seniority within that classification of an employee, not years of service with the city. The city actually tried to change that a few years ago, but at the time the unions were interested in doing so. I know that doesn't help the individuals that are here tonight, but that is something that has been brought up in the past. Chief, go ahead and talk about the part-timers.
The part-timers work anywhere from 10 to 15 hours a week, so it's less than when a full-time employee.
All right, I was pretty impressed with the city attorney about your understanding of overtime. And that is because of the minimum staffing we have within the organization, public safety. So every day we have a certain number of firefighters or paramedics or engineers or captains that are required to be working in our city. If one of them takes a day off for, vacation, sick time, or if they're injured, we must fill that position, and it gets filled with overtime. Okay, so that means we spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in overtime for folks to fill those positions. Right now in the fire department, we have numerous positions that are vacant. Because those positions are vacant, that means we're creating a larger overtime expenditure at this time. And the reason we're not hiring individuals is we had the discussion at the previous budget meeting that we're just looking to restructure the fire department. By doing that means is we're looking to reduce the number of staff members serving the city at a given time. So it doesn't make sense to hire individuals to get rid of that overtime at this time when you wish to change that staffing model. The challenge the city has is it takes 6 months, if we're lucky, and that's what we're trying to budget for, well, the previous time, yes, to go through the meet and confer process. Then after that, you go through mediation. Then after that, you go to fact-finding. And then after all that process is done, then the city council can move forward with imposing a last, best, and final offer or any kind of negotiation process. That's the challenge the city council has is it can't just go to the unions and say, guess what, everybody gets a 40-hour layoff or furlough, which is a 2% reduction in pay. They can't do that. No, that's what folks have suggested furloughs. It takes months to put those items into place.
You should have done it last year.
Okay, well. All right. Well, we're not, and then in addition to the process, we have been through this process once before, and now we're revisiting it again. So it is going to take hopefully a little bit less time because we know exactly what we're trying to do. When it comes to the salary and benefits of individuals, the challenge we are having also is that many of the groups were not within an MOU. So by not having groups with an approved MOU, it's much more difficult to go back and start imposing conditions on work when you have an open MOU. So recently, the City Council was successful in closing the MOUs on the miscellaneous groups, and now we're working on, bless you, now we're working on the various public safety groups. And part of those are trying to get these structural reforms that have been brought up tonight that the City Council has been trying to address. I will say that, you know, it's a tough job as a city manager, having to say goodbye to individuals who I remember hiring and being a part of the hiring of each of those individuals that are sitting in front of me. And this city is, I think it's accurate, some of the residents have spoken, we will be in a similar situation next year. If we're able to close the budget gap that we are anticipating, if the council approves all the items other than the business license tax of about, we'll have about a $1.5 million gap to close between now and hopefully the 26th. That 1.6 million may mean other additional bodies here in our organization. That just gets us through this year. Okay, next year we already know pension costs are going to go up by $2 million. We know that, and there's nothing we can do to stop that. Okay, and they're going to go another $2 million after that the following year. We already know that. Okay, we know medical costs keep going up. That's one of the reasons why the council has been important to them to try and cap medical benefits for all employees in the organization. All right, so their council has been for some time trying to make these structural changes. And, you know, I think it's unfair for the public to say that they're not. They have been working on these for a couple of years. And the challenge has been is that we knew these costs were coming and they're going to continue coming. And next year, I'm not going to give out a number, but we will be millions of dollars in shortage for next year. And we'll be in the same situation looking for either revenues to increase or expenditures to help balance this budget again next year. Many of the items you're seeing as presented in this year's budget are one-time items as well. So it does make a challenge. We are having some structural changes in here, significant ones, but there are also going to be some challenges again next year. Mr. Mayor, I don't know if I missed any other comments from some of the residents that need to be addressed, but yes, sir.
You wrote up a thing about the Ford thing that Chris Miller talked about, the Ford.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. So when the city made that transition, actually no one lost their job as a part of that process. Everybody was provided a position within the organization last year. So no one did lose their job. And it has been profitable for the city. We are receiving rent from Ford for utilizing the facility. We get sales tax that's generated from the repairs that they do there. And there has been some savings from the staffing that we're not doing there. But there has been some additional costs, as the council has been made aware. We've had some challenges with public safety vehicles in the past few months that have raised our costs and our fleet management. But the council is aware of that as well. Anything else, Mr. Spence, on that, or no? All right.
Yeah, there was one other question he asked about who's going to do the job of these people and will there be savings?
Good point. No, there is going to be changes, and the city attorney and the council has been made aware of that. That, you know, I think the comment is made that we are going to have a reduced number of staff out there doing street projects, working on the sewer programs. But we're also looking to contract out services for the cleaning and maintenance of our parks. So that is what is happening, is being proposed.
Okay, is there any other questions? If not, City Manager, on this item, the City Council direction, do we have to vote on this tonight? Is that what you're looking for, direction?
We're actually, if we can, Mr. Mayor and Council, is with the items that we have here for closing the gaps in the direction, if you want to do them individually as a group, I'll leave that to the discretion of the Council.
Okay, let's do them individually.
Sure. So while we're doing that, I'll try and address some of the other questions that came up. Mr. Miller, actually one of the residents, spoke about the Athens fees increasing. We've already projected those numbers into this year, but we've refined those numbers with Athens, so we got an additional 10,000 more than we anticipated. But he is correct, it's more than just the 10,000 this year. But we've already built those numbers into the budget.
Well, I think he also said, well, he figured it to be 500,000. It isn't.
Oh, no.
There was an increase in fees.
Right.
There was a CPI plus they were guaranteed.
CPI plus 3%, I believe?
Plus 3%, I think it was.
Yeah.
And so that's the difference.
Yeah. All right. Is there any objection to that one? Which one? The revenue projection, or, I mean, That's really administrative.
If I can ask a question on that, that's something, it's like,
I know it's not really something you need to do. That's something we can do on our own. We're just sharing that with you. Revenue, unless there's a concern about the revenue projections, we're moving forward with those. Delete the SB1, that is a policy decision, because that does mean that we are not going to be collecting the SB1 funds for fiscal year 17-18.
I had a question on that. Weren't we going to try to find out what the deal was as far as the timing and prorating and all those kinds of issues related to the possible November election stuff? We were talking about if you paid it after, if you paid it, before deadlines.
So this is for last fiscal year, 17-18.
Okay, so, and when's the deadline for that?
Well, that's already come and gone. That's not come and gone in the sense of getting the proration. You either pay the 567 period, and
you guys have already explored all the other stuff we talked about.
That's just for, because they do it on their fiscal year.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's for 17-18. As a council, just a recollection, what we did for fiscal year 18-19 is saying we're not planning on collecting, and should Proposition 6 not move forward, where the gas tax stays in place, the city council will reevaluate at that time if you want to say if you can find the $567,000 to go towards street projects and collect what could be up to $1.8 million on top of that.
On the business license, okay, let's say we can have additional 1.7, but how can you guarantee, even we have say majority for vote, say okay, go to ballot, but how can you guarantee, okay, that will be passed by the residents? So now over here you already kind of add $1.7 million of revenue.
No, sir. At the beginning of the presentation, we said that there wasn't support for the council to do so. So we're not counting on that.
So this 1.7 is not including?
No, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's going to happen, hopefully between now and the 26th, the staff will go back and start looking for additional $1.7 million to help close the rest of the gap. All right. Additional revenues, I don't think the fund staff time, those are all automatic as well. We're just sharing with you the items. Additional personnel cutbacks by various departments. That's something that if you wish to have a more specifics, we'd have to go into closed session to do. We can also provide you an update on that one at your closed session next week if you wish as well.
On that, I think at some point we need to do that, because I think that's such a broad enough category that if I remember right, I'm talking some of these, there were some yes, some no's, and it was in closed session.
And these are new. These are not ones that were part of that.
I think obviously we have to have that discussion at some point individually, maybe not tonight, but at some point we do.
Well, if you wish, we could go through the rest of the list and come back to that, go to closed session, and then come back out if you'd like. Oh. All right. We mentioned about putting some money back into the city clerk's budget, so we've looking to do that. Discover, going from 4 publications to 2. Okay. Unfunded community events budget.
I want to go back to the Discover brochure. So we talked about also doing the web. So would we be updating the web more often, or only updating it twice a year too?
So if we were going to do a twice annual, biannual publication, we would look to be updating the same. We would keep the same information, because what we would end up doing is have advanced dates. You'd have 6 months that you were trying to cover, and then you would get the data from your instructors ahead of time. So to change that would be more complicated and would be confusing for people who were registering, as well as for the staff and the instructors. So I would not recommend that. I would recommend that whatever we decide to do for a print publication is something that we do online. If you decided to get rid of the Discover altogether, which again, not advocating, then online we would be doing regular updates on as well.
Thank you.
Since we are trying to save all the penny here, can we just say, okay, temporarily suspend the $30,000 of this publication, and in the future, let's say within year or 2, okay, we have more money, can we just bring it back?
Well, if it's the next year, anytime you're allowed to bring back the Discover at any time if the council wishes to do so, if we have the funds to do so.
So due to we have such a stress, okay, of this budget issue.
Right, so right now we're going from 4 to 2 is what we're proposing, so we still have a publication. If the council wishes to go down.
But it still costs $30,000.
Yes, sir.
So my point is potentially we can put everything online. It doesn't cost any money, right?
That's correct. So
okay, and we can suspend this, okay, after we go through this tough time?
We do. I will say, and I think Ms. Bresciani is correct, is by doing that, you will see a reduction in our class offerings and the revenues that generate from that too. So there could be an offsetting revenue if we were to fully eliminate the program. Is that correct, or?
Yeah, other agencies who have gone to eliminating it in difficult budget times drastically saw reductions, and I don't have the names offhand, but I remember going through this exercise several times over the last 10 years in a couple different agencies, and it's one of those things where it's when they do it, it sounds good, and then they wish they would have never done it. So having at least twice a year is more beneficial than just eliminating it altogether.
No, I love, okay, the city's publication. Okay, I receive it. I see a lot of good information, and that I still collect 10 years ago. Okay, thing including how they do a big league dream, and they have an announcement with grand opening. I still collect. We still keep it because a lot of things is really a good memory for our city, how we grow. Okay, and that's why I think it's very important. But the point I have is just due to this very tough. Okay. Our young people get laid off, this and that, and do we still feasible even keep this $30,000? Okay, and I understand that from this $30,000, maybe we can have more revenue coming in because some senior citizens or some they prefer to receive this while they go to online. A lot of people don't even use the email. So I understand. We just have to see your suggestion, which one we can balance. Okay, meaning we spend $30,000, but we can bring in the $60,000. Then it's a good business.
Sure. If you were asking me if I would rather have a Discover publication twice a year versus keeping somebody, one of those people that are sitting out there today, no, I would say get rid of it and go online because those bodies I value. So what I would say is that we would ramp up our social media efforts and our marketing in other ways.
And if I may add, depending on what happens over the next couple of weeks, we may come back to you and say that we aren't able to fund this additional $30,000. So, but are we okay at least moving forward with this at this time? And then the unfunding of community events budget at this time? And again, we have monies in the foundation, which will come back. We'll try and prioritize events with the Community Services Foundation at that time. Fire fees, the Chief Woodhorn made that presentation, so we will bring back more discussion as part of the adoption of the fee and charge schedule unless there is opposition to do so. Okay. Oh, certainly, that'd be part of the staff report. We are looking to unfund a planning assistant position or eliminate that at this time. It is a vacant position as of next week. And then lastly, and this is more of an administrative, is the closure of the gap with public safety augmentation funds. Again, this will be a one-time thing because this just happens to be what's in the fund balance. And with that, I believe we have close to a 1.5 or 1.6 gap still to close. Is that about right, Judy? Yeah? She's trying to use her calculator real quick.
The gas tax stuff, right? Is that what the augmentation fund was? Was that the tax, the sales tax thing, or whatever?
Yes, that's the state tax, state sales tax.
Yeah, and is that still ongoing, or that got folded at some point? Is that
no,
money?
we still receive monies.
So, how much money do we receive a year? Is that just, and how did we budget that? And I understand we're taking the balance, but is there money we've gotten that we've put in there? And is that the right amount? I guess is what I'm saying. If there's overage.
Certainly, and so I believe we budget around $700,000 a year is what we receive.
And that's what we normally get?
Yes, and so that's historically what we've been receiving. So we budget that and utilize those funds as they come in, but it's only for certain uses, and so staff works with the police department to make sure it follows those appropriate uses.
Okay, and so the overage of that over a long time period has been at 160?
Yes, our 131 is the balance we've had for the last couple of years.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that, any other comments or changes to that portion? Did you want to recess into the closed session and talk about the other item real quick?
Yes, at this time we're going to recess at 9:17 and move into closed session.
So I just need to report out and adjourn.
On just a second, let's make sure we're back on.
Is all you have to do is report out in closed session?
Yes, sir, and then we can adjourn.
Is it back on? Or not yet? Sire on? Okay. Okay. Where should we go? Oh, there he is. Where do we go? Wasn't sure whose it was. Yes, next week.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're back in the regular meeting at, looks like 9:39. Madam City Manager, is anybody you'd like to report out of closed session?
I will.
Madam City Manager.
Which is never the job I would want to have, thank you. Yeah, there was... Not that there's anything wrong with that. Right. So there was no reportable action taken in closed session. Staff was given direction. That is all.
Is there any city councilmen that want to make any last final statements or any things you want to report or anything? I think because I think we're done. You done, Chris?
Chris, you want to say something regarding the date? No.
No.
Nope.
No.
I'd like to make a statement. Sure. Mayor Pro Tem Wu says he's got a plan that will cut overtime by hiring. I would love to see that plan, or I would love him to give that plan to the city manager so we can look at it. We're trying to get a budget done, and please provide that. If you've got a good way, hey, I want to look at it.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Warshaw. Okay, I've been requesting, the police department and even other consultant have been asking about the analysis, new hire against the overtime. And so I need to get that in detail. Plus, I want the police department and the fire department to provide the new hire and their current totally out of control overtime situation. Because if you see on the transparent about all those pay, the base pay is $90,000, overtime is $100,000. And you're paying two salary to one person. So how can we because the service cost continue to increase, and then we are going to have a staffing reduced, and in that way, I guarantee it's over time. And next year, we're going to sit over here. So we need really look into this number, and this will become from the police and fire department to see this number, and then we can put in this to have everybody have a copy and see if it will be feasible or not. Because again, we not only to see this year, next year, and the next 3 years. If we don't starting with some place, we are going to do this every year. And then we are going to continue accumulate, all this, and the sad story, people get laid off. We really have to look into where is the major expenditure, and we have to control it. So that's what I say, we need to get those numbers.
I have something to it's clear to me that there's some people that are very, very passionate about being able to force other people to pay taxes, and they're willing to impose those taxes on themselves. And so at the next meeting or something, I think we should go ahead and let people start ahead of time, that they can start contributing the amount they want to give. If they want a utility tax, they don't have to wait for the utility bills. They can start sending us the money now. And that way they can have a head start on be able to help that process. And it's something we should probably, talk about setting up so we can let people, if they're passionate about it, we should let them live their passion.
And I'm sure they might want to if some council members would be willing to allow them to vote.
I'm better than that. Better than voting, I'm willing to let them write a check right now. They can write a check right now.
And if they write a check, are you willing to put it on the ballot?
Let's see how many checks they write.
Mr. Mayor, if the council wishes, we do have the slide. We have presented overtime calculations before. We'd be more than happy to go through it again. Okay.
No. I said it this. Okay. Yes, you have your copy. Okay. But I'm talking about I want from the police department, the fire department, from their department provide because they provide a number. Okay.
They don't.
And, yeah, but they should provide for their budget because they compute to tell you how much they are going to spend for next year, how many day overtime, how many this and that projection. So here we want the police department, okay, they have a consultant over there, give us a what your projection. If we have a higher additional new person, a 6%, how much okay we can reduce about current overtime. Yes, we might have to pay their benefit, this and that, okay, continue maybe in the future, but in the current we have all these young people, new people coming in, okay, and with this rookie, okay, this is already in the training police academy, and then we'll see how soon we can have them, okay, into our workforce. Really have to control the overtime, okay. I think I said it again. I know our councilman, Warshaw really like overtime. Overtime create two issues. Overtime we continue to grow and eat us alive. I said it so many times. Second thing, liability. I don't think the police or fire they want to work forever if they don't have a mental health, okay, to spend the money. And the second thing, okay, the liability. Okay, you have a person working 16 hours, 14 hours, okay, and then because they don't have enough staffing, okay, what will happen? The liability is so huge for the city, a potential lawsuit. Okay, any misconduct, okay, happen due to the stress, okay, who could pay for it? Who's going to pay for it? I think it's going to go taxpayer again, $3 million, $5 million lawsuit. We have to avoid all those potential. Just not be short sight, just over time. Let's balance right now. But don't think about the consequences. You have to see far away. You have to see what the future will bite us on the butt. So reduce the stress from our public safety, okay, and with a new hire to reduce the overtime. I think this is something we have to look into it. And so, I don't know, the consultant will charge you extra for that, okay, or not. We really have to see something, rather than just lay off people and continue and try to, okay, not control the expenditure and see what is our core, okay, our base problem. Okay, and how can we approach and solve this? And gradually, maybe this year, second years, okay, we're still in this kind of situation. But in the long run, you gradually catch up. Okay, more people and reduce the overtime. Okay, otherwise you continue the one person have a two salary. Okay, and the service is not there. At the same time, we will out of control budget.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, please go ahead.
I don't like overtime. I didn't vote to increase the number of staff in the fire department, which has caused a lot of this overtime this last year and caused this negative. You voted for that. So don't give me that I'm trying to increase overtime. I can't see in paying a consultant additional monies. I think that's a waste of time. When you hire a new employee, they have to work full time. And overtime doesn't cover that. So you can't just take and say, well, you're going to work this overtime, but then you're not going to work for 2 weeks because there's no overtime, and then you're going to work it again. Show me the numbers. You said you have them. You don't have them.
Well, you can say what you want to say, but I'm talking about I want this number come from our department. Oh, do I have a number or not? I need them to provide a number, then we have the number. It's not me to create a number, or you, just of your imagination, create about what this and that.
Okay,
we already have those numbers.
Excuse me. Okay, guys, calm down. I want to say something. I have to ask a question, City Manager. A lot of overtime is filled because we don't have the employees to backfill, correct? What if those vacancies were eliminated? I'm asking a question. We'll be paying overtime for vacancies that we do not have then.
What happens is by eliminating positions, you eliminate opportunities for overtime or the backfilling those empty positions. I don't want to go into any more detail about this because we've already talked about some changes in the structures of public safety that we have to meet and confer on, but that is something that we believe will help address some of the overtime issues in the departments.
Okay, thank you. It's good enough for me. Any other questions? Okay.
Ms. Lancaster can give an overview of just the concepts for the benefit of the public and the council if you wish.
I would like that.
Okay. Ms. Lancaster.
Well, as you can see on the slide, the average hourly rate, if we were to hire police or fire employees, it will be $93.70 for police sergeant. Compared to if they were going to be in overtime, it's $99.49. But when you see this 93 versus the 99.49, you would say it would be cheaper to hire. But in the long run, that when hiring an employee, eventually you will have to pay the unfunded accrued liability again, which is the one that is really causing a lot of the problems for the deficit. So with overtime, it's more expensive, as you can see it. Over here, it's less expensive, but over the time, it will be more expensive than the overtime rate.
Okay, when you say hourly rate, okay, 93.17, and then you say you go overtime, 99.49, sound like it's just a slight increase. But when I see the number, okay, regarding the transparent, okay, about the pay from those officers regarding their overtime exists their base pay. So we're talking about almost like, okay, and it's not going to be 99 based on this number. I'm talking about exactly the pay. Okay, that's already all the places in public about each person, how much they pay and how much they overtime. We can see so many overtime exist. What, okay, some of the equal, okay, or more than their base salary. So I don't know this number, where this number coming from compared with transparent about their disclosed number. So based on that number, this is not 93, not 99. I think there will be more than $120 per hour.
Well, when you can see the 99.49, I don't know what the California transparency shows, but this is what is the overtime rate that we will do, because overtime rate will not have PERS on it. It will only be Medicare and workers' comp.
I can forward you those number. So if you don't have, okay, I have a copy, and based on, okay, and somebody provided those email, they download it. I can forward to you. I've been reading and try to research about that and see how can we contend about all this, okay, pay. So I can email to you. You can look into it, compare with your number and exactly how much they can pay, and see how we can adjust it, can justify and the number. Again, what I'm saying is you try to justify the overtime. I'm trying to see about how we control the overtime.
That's a policy, and that's an actual administration. It's not a financial, okay? The administration, the policy is not about just giving overtime. We don't just give overtime just to give overtime. Overtime is approved because of the MOUs that are in place that require minimum staffing of police and firefighters. Okay, so that means if someone who's working today as an officer calls in sick, that is backfilled with overtime. Okay, and that happens frequently. That happens almost on every shift. Because remember, they get hours off for vacation time, sick time, if they have to get drawn into court and they're not on patrol. There's a variety of reasons that we are paying overtime. Okay, when we have vacancies, we're paying overtime for all those vacancies, which is what you're speaking of, Mayor Pro Tem Wu. And here is the thing, is if those vacancies do not exist, that overtime does not exist. And so those are the areas that we're looking at as a city, and we've already addressed that with the 6 vacancies that we have in the police department now. Those are all being done with overtime. Those positions, as part of this proposed budget, are being eliminated. So you're going to see a reduction in the overtime budget just from those alone.
Here's the problem, okay? When you start talking about you hire new people over there, you right away they'll say this person is going to have an overtime guarantee. Okay, it should be say if we have this person, and we should have overtime policy and how we arrange this overtime. Any company they have a policy of overtime because the overtime makes sure they're going to exist. Okay, I've been in the company so many times, including my own company. It's something too. We try to control. Okay, don't let staff overwork. Okay, and some of them you force them to work those long hours. Okay, and some of them they say I didn't sign up to do this long hour due to we don't have enough staff. So that's why I'm saying we have to look into how to use staffing to control this balance. Okay, because otherwise, okay, no matter how you say it, sound like okay you have a staff, then it's overtime. What I say is different than what you say is when we have staff. We have enough staff, okay, to entertain, okay, the request, then we will reduce the overtime, supposedly like this, okay. But in your concept is anytime we have new staff, Yeah, he's going to guarantee overtime. So problem is over here. How can we use a policy by police or fire? If you have getting new staff, you have to reduce the overtime. Okay, in that way, we don't have to pay 1.5 time or double time. Okay, and in that way, we have a better service. Again, okay, I understand no matter how we debate this, you have your point of view. I have my point of view. My point of view is, see, we really have to look into it, okay, but otherwise your number doesn't fit for what I believe. My belief, no matter what, we're in business for 30 years, okay, this is not going to sustain, okay, because it can continue, you go into out of budget, and we'll do the same thing, okay? No matter, just like I said last time, they really want to raise taxes. The raise taxes doesn't even can fix the problem if you don't control your expenditure. So we really have to look into how we control expenditure. What is our core problem? What is our central problem? Create all this deficit. How long? They've been here 5 years. Okay, how can we have this deficit continue again? Okay, and then we continue to sit over here and doing this thing. We're not signed for this kind of thing. We signed for what to improve the city. Now come over here and try to lay off people. Okay. Okay, what have they doing for this freaking 5 years? Okay, this is very upsetting. Okay, and continue talking about the only resolve to do this raise tax. Okay, I can guarantee raise tax still cannot resolve the issue.
No. He's going to attack me. I'm going to come right back. And what have you done for the last 3 years? But say
2.5.
No. Well, I haven't been there 5 years.
I've been doing a lot, much more than you.
And I haven't been there 5 years, right? And you're going to bring in all this business. What business have you brought in? We haven't seen the sales tax increase. We haven't seen the other. I have brought in a lot more business than you.
I don't see any. Okay.
Yeah. You want to go through that? I'll do that. You want to start that? I'll continue it.
We're allowed to agree to we're allowed to, all right, please. We're allowed to agree to disagree, guys. But we're up here to do city business. We're not up here to argue. I understand it, okay? So if there's nothing else, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
I can continue.
No.
I do like the show. One of Wu and Warsha show. Let's continue to argue.
Okay, you do that after we adjourn.
As we said, talk.
Do I have a second? You want a second? Okay, we have a first and second. Okay, we're adjourned.